Okay, so first of all, I want to apologize. This thumbnail is going to be, in the title, is going to be, well, slightly misleading. We're going to cover the end of Oak Street movie reviews, but also we're going to go into the sex and death of the teenage sex and death of at Camp Miasma. Yeah, that's another long title that I'm not quite sure of. I haven't made a review of that. I don't think. Actually, I think I did. But um, well, anyway, so we're gonna get into live reviews of that. But I kind of just want to start out with the whole um, well, I just want to start with the reviews. I'm going to be working on this on another screen while you get to enjoy it. Now, I will say this as I've always said it. Let me go ahead and start the playlist. First of all, I'll go ahead and copy the playlist, the link to it, because I include every playlist in every live stream, as long as along with the link to every video that I watch, because I don't want anybody coming to me with copyright claims. Just saying.
Before Married America, Amy was struggling financially as a single parent. She worked as a truck.
You're also going to be seeing a lot of advertisements because my YouTube premium subscription has expired, and I'm not really worried about renewing it right now because I don't have enough money. I really don't have any money. So please feel free to donate. I'll try to remember to leave my Cash App, not Cash App, Chime link or PayPal. I don't really use Cash App. If you feel like donating, I'm not sure if I even have that set up yet. Link in case I were to get super chats. Anyway, here we go.
The end of Oak Street. Alan, you and I both saw this movie, and we need to talk spoilers.
Yes.
Because I have a difference of opinion with you about this film. Yes.
Really?
I do. Yes, I do.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Get the spoiler thing out.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Spoiler free for the beginning of this review. But Anne Hathaway is the mother of the family. She plays Denise. Ewan McGregor is Greg. They are the Platts, and they have two kids. It's Audrey and Brian Platt. They live in a suburbs out of a Spielberg movie.
Mm-hmm.
Poltergeist, E.T. They're in that suburbs. It's 1982. There's a community picnic. They're with their dog. They're having a great time. And, Anne Hathaway's character, Denise, she's kind of they're struggling in the marriage. Greg, he's got a side job delivering pizzas, and she's secretly writing a book. She's friends with people in the neighborhood. They have a horrible, mean neighbor who does not like their dog. One night, miraculously, suddenly, this, it's almost like a mile or two radius of a few blocks of suburbs.
It's called a flash of light.
With a flash of light, transport them back to the Jurassic era. And there are dinosaurs everywhere. They soon learn this as their neighbors are being killed and ripped apart. They struggle to survive. First, they think the electricity's out. Then they see this chaos ensue. It's a fight for survival, and they don't know what happened. What should they do? What will they do? Food, water is running out, and the different critters get more and more menacing. What I liked about the creatures in this, the dinosaurs, while they're inspired by Jurassic Park, they're also inspired by other theories about what dinosaurs may have looked like. They may have had feathers or had fur in some cases, right? So these are a slight variant of what we're used to seeing, how we're used to seeing dinosaurs in movies. At some point, they've got to survive. They go out searching for the family dog for food. And of course, the family is in peril. This is what I like about the movie is short, sweet. It's a Twilight Zone episode. It's 90 minutes. You're in, you're out. And I had a good time watching it. And part of me, if you turn your brain off, would recommend it. But the more you think about it, I had a lot of issues with this movie. And it's spoiler territory if we get to it. Before we talk spoilers, Alan, I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said it many times, but this is a roller coaster ride. They're just trying to survive, escaping dinosaurs, mayhem, people dying all around them, flashing images, love the flashing images. If you treat it as shut your brain off and you're on a roller coaster ride, you're fine. If you want depth, there is no depth in this movie. My issue is, with Jurassic Park, there's this theme of, should man be doing this? Should man be playing God? And these are the consequences of man playing God. And here it's just a family running from dinosaurs. Yes, there is marital problems, but it's not like we haven't seen these in television shows, countless television shows and movies. And there's one woke moment with one woke lesbian moment that will the one at least I caught that was like,
he's out of line, but he's white. Though in fact, there's a lesbian woke moment. This may in fact be the first time that I agree with Al all this year. And look, woke is dead, but people are going to make references. Hollywood. They're going to do it. They're going to try it. They're going to try with the woke bullshit regardless. Everybody knows it, so everybody can get off the Odyssey's ass. Sort of Spider-Man, or anything involving Doom. All these movies are woke. Every single one is woke. That's why our President Donald Trump doesn't watch these movies, because everything is woke. In fact, everything. The worst movie the worst year of our time. Even though it's the best, it's also the worst. How that's possible, I have no idea. Can't apologize for what I do. Hey, bitch.
Right out there. But honestly, I want more than just a roller coaster movie. I want it to say something.
Yeah.
And this movie really didn't have anything to say. It is a popcorn movie. There's no depth, nothing to really latch onto other than the fun flashing images that are thrown into your face. And then you get to the ending, which would lead us to the spoiler part of this movie.
Okay. So if you're looking for a popcorn movie, you want to shut your brain off, it's possible to enjoy the end of Oak Street.
Yeah. In fact, let me restate what I said Wednesday. There's a thing they have to do. All right. I'll leave it at that. When they do the thing, you could actually just walk out of the movie theater and have a good time.
I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree.
All right.
So I'll give it a bare recommend, but I have thoughts on the spoiler territory.
Yeah.
We're putting up the warning.
Right. And I'll give it a bare recommend, but the ending killed it for me. But
the ending made me like it more before the ending. Okay. So let's talk first of all. If you turn your brain off, you'll enjoy it. But there are these, and I'll say this, I'm a little disappointed because the director is David Robert Mitchell, who did the movie It Follows, which is really an amazing movie.
And tonally, this movie doesn't even come near It Follows.
Amazing movie. And he did another movie that bombed that I also really liked called Under the Silver Lake. I bought that movie with Andrew Garfield. It's about a sex cult in Hollywood. Watch Under the Silver Lake. Really good film. So both those movies, It Follows and Under the Silver Lake, have a lot more going on with them. Right. End of Oak Street really has nothing going on.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know it was. Sorry, you wouldn't even know that this was the guy who directed.
Yeah, not at all. But so the movie, you think the movie, it's like they end up escaping this peril, and then it ends up undoing something the movie did that made me kind of like it more. It's like, oh, that was very clever. That I thought it was clever. Denise, like, I was ready to hate the movie, and then they tacked on this ending where it's like the nice ending, and it's like, oh, I like it more. But wait, Alan, I'm not done. The things that bugged me is Anne Hathaway's character, Denise, is like a girl boss. She's going around, like, Ewan McGregor's character, Greg, has like a baseball bat. She's got a shotgun. And the reason they just...
She is a girl boss in this movie. And if I'm looking down, I'm looking at my other screen. So it's not that I'm like, you know, trying to be silly. I'm just trying to get all this organized. Because I like to just jump into the live stream here, you know? But I adjust things as I go. So. But yeah, Anne Hathaway is a girl boss. I kind of think she's a girl boss in every movie this year, except for The Odyssey. But, you know, that's besides the point, I suppose. Oops.
Justify this is that they show a photo on the wall of her with a shotgun. That's how we know, like, well, she has shotgun experience. Then there's Audrey Platt. They find some other girl. Audrey Platt. They find the neighbor girl whose parents were killed, whatever. Like, there's a lesbian, like, liking they have to each other. Brian thinks he's going to get with her.
He has a crush on her, yeah.
He has a crush on her, but no, Audrey does. So it's the modernity that ruins it. You've got girl boss and gay shit. And it's like, the movie didn't need it, but the fact that it's there is like, you had to do that. You had to do it. So for me, the review is mixed for a different reason than you. I thought the ending.
Notice he ain't hating it as much as he hated the Odyssey. You notice that? I'm gonna put 820. I got some stuff I gotta kind of say. I like to include timestamps as I do this. 508. I don't care. I like this guy Will Shift. I kind of want to watch him next, but I'm gonna have to organize the playlist because we also got the movie another movie called Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. That title is I'm just gonna take a while for me to get used to. Oh, Zafty, how I love your shit. Anyway, oh my God, here we go again, Geeks and Gamers, man. They're on it tonight with the end of Oak Street. Because I can tell there was some wokeness in the end of Oak Street, I could tell. But, you know, let's just see if they can muster up the hate, the same level of hate that they had for the Odyssey. Or they probably don't even have them out yet because their anti-woke energy has to recharge. Therefore, because they used a lot of it doing the Odyssey. They'll hate on the Odyssey. Anyway, let's keep the Vision Quest. Hold on, I'm looking at stuff. Vision Quest. Wow, that's interesting. That's hella interesting. A brand new Vision movie, probably on Netflix. What was I doing?
The ending was the very ending was clever.
Oh, I can't believe I'm hearing you say this.
No, it was like, okay.
Look, Chris. Here's what you need to do.
It's a TV. It's a streaming.
Here's what you need to do. You need to go grab your Back to the Future discs and burn them if you like this ending.
It doesn't make sense.
Because the ending has zero logical sense. From people who like science fiction, for people who hold science fiction dear, you will hate this ending because it violates everything you know about time travel and how events occur. And oh my gosh, yes, please destroy your all your discs of Back to the Future, please.
Okay, then tell me about what you don't like about the ending.
That was it. It was. I mean, we can go into detail here, but while they're in the past, Greg gets killed. He gets killed saving his family's life. Very good. And so they do the thing which sends him back to the present, but not to the present. It sends him back to before the event occurred. And so what Anne Hathaway's character does is she calls Greg, who is delivering pizzas, and has him diverted so that he is not at the house when the time shift occurs. And so now the family is back together. But guess what? If Greg then doesn't go back into the past, what happens to the family what happens to the family that's in the bubble that goes back to the past? And how does that family come back to the present when Greg is dead and things like that? It's just this logical mess. Again, if you're a fan of Back to the Future, you're just going to spit your coffee out.
Well, I'm just willing, with what the family went through, I'm willing to let that go.
Yeah, too.
I'm willing to let that
bypass
go.
law.
But I still recommend it, a bare recommend, but there are parts that are going to make you cringe and were completely unnecessary. In fact, there didn't need to be any sexual tension with the kids at all. Like zero. What's the point?
No, I mean, look, I think if the boy fell in love with the girl and something happened from that, yeah, I would have loved to have seen that.
Well,
but we cut it off and went to the lesbian storyline.
Yeah, it's typical. It's typical. Anyways, at the end, I still give it a bare recommend, if only for the setting, and it was fun. But this is literally nothing more than a Twilight Zone episode with a twist ending that I wish made you think, but doesn't.
Yeah, I would say if you just want to unplug your brain and watch a roller coaster ride, there you go. I'll give it a bare recommendation for that. But the ending just made me frustrated as to no end.
Alright, let's move on. I'm gonna go back to the playlist here. Because I had reorganized it in a way. Thanks a lot, Chris and Al. I'm gonna try to close out some of these tabs as well. So you notice they noticed the woke shit, obviously, right? That's great. That's lovely, in fact. So lovely, so lovely. Where is my playlist for the? Okay, good. Wow, I got some work to do. Here's Jeremy Johns at the top. I'm going to try to organize it. This woman here, I really like her stuff. Thank God it's actually short this time around. Here's mine. It has no views. I'll put it at the bottom because I'm ever so humble. Because I'm not counting on you to like this at all. And yeah, I said I wanted to see this guy. So let me go ahead and let's go ahead and I'm going to include Jeremy first. And yeah, that was filmed through it, so I'll put them at the bottom since it's already been done. And we'll put this guy at the bottom as well. Geeks and Gamers. And we put these two together since they know each other. And Eric. Eric. Eric takes a little bit too long, so I'm gonna put him right before Femdor. And that's an out of theater reaction. Let me, you know what? I think we can do that. It's not really a review, but of a review in a way. But I will happily include this at the bottom. Actually, you know what? Let's do a little bit of that before. Let's put that right after Jeremy. I like to jump to Jeremy, him and Chris Tuckman, because they're so good. So, I'll go ahead, go in this little one here, and I'll click share, and then I'll click copy, and then we'll go into it.
Want to learn DJing from legends who shaped global club culture? Now you can. You've tried scattered YouTube tips. No real feedback, no structure, no gigs. Sound familiar? At Pete Tong DJ Academy, we've built a roadmap we wish we all had. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned pro, learn directly from the icons. Carl Cox, Jamie Jones, Adam Bayer, Arm.
I wonder if I would have gained anything still watching those ads, like financially.
Kind of feels like a zombie apocalypse, but instead of zombies, it's dinosaurs. There's even a sequence in here. I was like, oh, it's like Resident Evil with dinosaurs. Which I guess would be Dino Crisis. Anyhow, let's talk.
Good reference. King Jimmy rules the wicked. I gotta win. It's been a Okay, so we're gonna save a few to the playlist. I like to do it where I can catch them. Super cool. End is over. I'm just gonna save it to anyone. Yeah, Joe and his team, Angry Joe and his team, they go at it. They're really fight.
Talk about what's at the end of Oak Street. So the end of Oak Street's written and directed by David Robert Mitchell, who brought us It Follows a few years ago, I mean over a decade ago. It has been 12 years since It Follows. That's wild to me. This stars Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor as a married couple in 1982 in this suburban town. Then a weird bright light happens and, well, their town's inundated with dinosaurs at that point. The funny thing is, I mean, dinosaurs on screen, dinosaurs eating neighbors, you know, it's all fun. Even the dinosaurs in this movie do have that, they have feathers. Which as time has gone on, or the right doom scroll article hits me, I see, hey, dinosaurs, they might have had feathers. They might have been furry. The point is, the dinosaurs in this movie, they look very birdish. But the coolest part of the movie was what I've seen people call the slowest part of the movie is the setup, the build-up. It's doing that Jaws thing, also the beginning of Jurassic Park thing, also dinosaur movie thing, where you don't see what's out there, but you hear it, and it's scary. Less is more. The build-up of this movie really felt like something out of The Outer Limits. You know, it's this suburban town. Everything is so great, you know something's gonna happen. That's what this movie is. It's a really solid episode of something like The Outer Limits that doesn't really work for me as a feature-length film. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. The movie's meh. Some may love the end of Oak Street, some may hate it, but I feel like most will agree this movie's not as good as you might want it to be. First of all, the characters. I mean, I would have liked the characters more if they were more likable or smart. There's dumb decision making throughout this film. There's no doubt whatsoever. But there's also tonal inconsistency. It's like, is this movie trying to be a comedy? Is it trying to be a horror movie? Or at the very least, you know, a sci-fi thriller movie? There are scenes that are funny that are meant to be funny. There are other scenes where the audience was laughing and I was like, I feel like this is supposed to be taken far more seriously than we're all taking it right now. Anne Hathaway is absolutely the standout and the star protagonist of this film. Also, I feel like her and Zendaya have some sort of competition of, hey, who can be in more movies in 2026? Anne Hathaway is great in the movie. I mean, to be fair, her counterpart, Ewan McGregor's character, is a complete and total wet rag of a husband and a father.
Yeah, so I want to kind of go into that right now, right? In the Oak Street, Glitz exposed. We're gonna do Glitz later. Let's see. Get rid of this. So here is the IMDb page for the movie. Look at little Zendaya. You know, I didn't know she was a Disney child, so I think she was. Anyway, we open up Anne Hathaway's own page, and it's unpinned. You can see this is Variety. I think that's okay. That's an author. This is a new movie coming out with Anne Hathaway. Okay. And Dakota Johnson. So the reason, you know, I'm gonna go into why Anne Hathaway. So this is the other movie she was in, the so-called Mother Mary, right? She's got another movie. She's got like 4 or 5 movies out. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 in 2026 alone. 2026, she's got 4. She's got The Devil Wears Prada. She's got Mother Mary, The Devil Wears Prada 2, The Odyssey, The End of Oak Street, and the upcoming Variety movie that's going to be later this year. She's got more than... she's got 5 big movies, 5. Never mind my thumb. My thumb is not a half. But I've seen all of them so far. Yeah. My least favorite of her 2026 films is actually... well, I'm stuck between Mother Mary and The Devil Wears Prada 2. The Devil Wears Prada 2 was just flat out boring, and Mother Mary was just flat out confusing. So I hate both of those films. Matter of fact, let me go into the IMDb page. I think I rated it myself. No, I did not rate these movies, but I will go ahead and rate them. She's a good actress, though. I'm not gonna cap. She's very good. She's very dramatic. She's one of the, I'm not going to say one of the best, but man, does her emotions really do go. She's very good at it. Because she's from a generation that, you can look at her in Princess Diaries, and the first Devil Wears Prada, which I still have not seen those films. I'm sorry, it's just that The Devil Wears Prada is not my cup of tea. I just could not understand it. I mean, I could kind of understand it, but I'm just finding it flat out boring. I'm just going to give it a half. Yes. Because I like to be fair. You know, maybe I have to watch it again. Because it wasn't really a bad film. It just was a boring film. Boring is not always bad. You know? Why do it? Mm. Ian McGregor is not doing any type of Star Wars here. Not doing an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Let me actually get this. I'm gonna give this movie a 4 because I just was fucking so. I don't like it when I'm confused. I don't. Actually, I'm gonna give it a 5 too. Yeah, I think that's fair because I kind of feel like it's my fault. Apparently, yeah. Apparently, she's a sort of a fucking musician or something. Weird. It's a weird movie to be. That's fine. Yeah. How old is Anna Hathaway? How old is she? She was born, I don't know if I can get a date. Oh, wait, never mind. November the 12th. Let's see if we can get a Hathaway. So, happen. 43 years old. Wow. She's a MILF. She got kids. Sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful. You know what? My cousin told me to V2. I should try it. See if she's got kids. I'm just curious. Oh, yep, she has 2 kids. Because it's so lagging behind. Oh, she's a New York Knicks fan. He's been noted for their 10 games at the Madison Square Garden. She's married to Adam Schuler, for whom she has 2 children. Adam Schuler. I don't know who. Oh, this guy. He's an actor, producer, enjoyed its honor. Seesaw Monster, The Shower, and Yesteryear. That sounds. I'm just thinking. This sounds familiar. Oh, who also wrote the novel behind the movie Bullet Train? Will it have the director for Bullet Train? Because if the director that directed Bullet Train, will he direct the movie of because it says right here the project is an adaptation of the guy who wrote the Bullet Train novel, in which the novel that the movie Bullet Train, I think it's 2021 movie, that movie 2021 starring Brad Pitt also had. It had Salma Hayek. It had Sandra Bullock in it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I get Anna Hathaway mixed with Sandra Bullock, I guess, because the two white women that had similar films during the same time. I know. I think Sandra Bullock is like a little bit older, but anyway. So Sandra Bullock is in Bullet Train. The writer of Bullet Train is gonna make another. He's got another book called Seesaw Monster, and let's just see real quick. I'm pivoting, as Chris Gore would say. If the same director Bullet Train is going to direct Seesaw Train. I feel like I should know who that is. Okay, so Bullet Train. Okay, so director David Leitch. Movie's 2021. This is the director, David Leitch. It is upcoming filmography. Jason Statham stole my bike. Are you serious? How to rob a bank? I'm gonna see that one. Ocean's 14. I'm more interested in this one. I'm shackled. Sounds like a cow. Please say it's fun. Is it please have attached voice? Oh, I'm having so much fun. Oh, no deal. Come on, man. Don't do that to me. Can I get it open? Oh my god, it's got the little guy from the Masters of the Universe movie. Anyway, let's get back on point. I think we picked it enough.
They're all sitting around in the dino apocalypse, and she's like, we need to go. We need to find food. We're going to starve to death if we stay here. He's like, no, if we go out there, we'll be killed. We need to stay here. I don't believe we'll die here. I just don't believe that. Yeah. Hell yeah. So the family dynamic goes from husband, wife, and 2 kids to single mother of 3. I don't want to undercut Anne Hathaway because she's great. She's accomplished. We know she's good. But for this particular movie, I wonder, is she actually standing out because Anne Hathaway, or is she standing out because of a lack of competition? She's the only actual character in the entire film. I mean, granted, that could be an arc, you know, the wimpy husband and father who steps up to save his family from the dinosaurs at one point. And it's, well, it's just not executed well. The whole thing kind of got repetitive. Funny, which is great that it's 90 minutes long. Any longer, I would have gotten the restless legs. I mean, 90 minutes is perfect for a movie like this. A story that should have been an episode of The Outer Limits, but got pushed to a feature-length film. But yeah, at a point, I was like, okay, let's just get it over with. And yeah, dinosaurs kill people, and it's always fun, but it's not new. I've seen dinosaurs kill plenty of people in cinema. Some of the dino chase sequences were great. There's one in particular I was like, this is a great chase sequence in the movie, no doubt. Also, I didn't know dinosaurs could be this stealthy. I'm not talking the clever girl kind of stealthy. That makes sense. No, I'm talking about a big-ass Allosaurus. I think it was an Allosaurus. Sneaking up on people talking, and things just like in the background, just walking towards them like it's... I'm like, you are talking. Your peripheral vision will be like, oh, something's coming. How stealthy is this? I don't need the Jurassic Park cup with the boom and the ripples and everything. But the characters in this movie have such little situational awareness multiple times in a world where they know everything in the environment's trying to kill them. Have your head on a swivel, or these idiots we're following are the survivors. I'd hate to see the idiocracy of the rest of the town. The editing and pacing was weird too. Like there's this bully sequence. You have the setup early on. This kid out there has an axe to grind against the main boy, the main kid of the family we're gonna follow. But we have this bully beatdown chase sequence between him and the smaller kid who's part of the family, and I'm like, has this dude been asleep for the past few days? There are carnivores out here that will kill.
That's what I'm gonna do.
It's like he didn't know. Granted, there's this moment he has where even he seems confused by it. The movie doesn't explain it at all. Maybe it wasn't even the character who was confused. Maybe it was the actor being like, none of this makes sense. I mean, the kid bully teaming up with the family, the kids putting aside their grievances for the betterment, you know, for the sake of survival. That could be a good arc. It never happens. The kid just comes in, there's a bit of a tussle, he leaves. We never see him again. Solid sound design too. I mean, the dinos sounded good. There's one moment after the big anomaly happens, they're all like, their ears are plugged and popping. They're like, honey, you okay? But the audio's reflecting it, so you as the audience member, like, I had the urge to yawn to pop my ears. Didn't need to pop my ears, but the movie made me feel like I did, and that's effective. Granted, then the characters start explaining why their ears are plugged. Almost like they turn to the audience and they're like, that anomaly happened and yeah, I feel like I have to plug my ears like they're underwater or something. You know, audience, just in case you didn't know why this is happening audibly with the sound system. Did I say plug my ears? Strike that. Reverse it. It would have been far more effective if you just let the audio play out and the audience gathers that's what's happening because that's what they're hearing. Maybe this is one of those moments in screenwriting you hear about where they have to break more down in crayon because they're dealing with TikTok brain among all of us. I hope not. It actually kind of feels like what Jurassic World was gonna do when at the end of one of the Jurassic World movies, it was, I believe it was Blue, and he was looking over this town. It was like, oh, the dinosaurs are coming to civilization. And it didn't really go there. Well, this movie goes there. You get that Jurassic World movie now. It's a new Jurassic World movie without the title. It's like Nosferatu to Dracula is End of Oak Street to Jurassic World. Simply put, I actually could have made this review a lot shorter. Could have just said, this
Meaning that, like, how Nosferatu is a retelling of Dracula's story, but they had omitted several characters due to the simple fact that they didn't want to completely rewrite Dracula. They wanted to make a new spin on Dracula. But of course, as we know, that Nosferatu, the creator thereof, was actually sued by Bram Stoker's family to the point where, like, They asked for all of the copies of Nosferatu to be destroyed. the 1928 film, silent film. And they were for the most part, but somebody found a copy that happened to be lying around, and they copied that copy, and that's why we have been able to watch Nosferatu, and that's why we have Robert Eggers. I was trying to remember the name of the author, the director. That's why we have a 2024 movie directed by Robert Eggers. I keep wanting to say Roger Ebert for some reason because it's like that R-E. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, yeah, I wonder what Bill Skarsgård's next movie. Never mind everybody else. I already know that William Dafoe is in some other stuff, and I'm just looking up random actors' filmographies.
Movie feels like it was written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. For better or for worse, you have a mystery. Not only that, it's an extraordinary mystery, dealing with dinosaurs in this case.
Yeah, it kind of does look like some M. Night Shyamalan-esque material, especially when you compare it to the movie, what is it called again? That island movie, I forgot, not Other, but whatever it was called, in the latest Trap movie with Josh. I forget, man. I'm so wasted on caffeine.
You're dealing with your average, everyday people dealing with this extraordinary mystery and situation. You also have conflicting tone, comedy that compromises the drama, characters who don't act or talk like people do, and dumb decision-making throughout. If I didn't know this movie wasn't written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan and someone told me that afterwards, I'd probably believe them. You can test that out with a friend of yours. Take him to this movie. They don't know who wrote it or directed it. Afterwards be like, oh, by the way, that was an M. Night Shyamalan movie. They'd be like, yeah, it makes sense. This isn't the worst movie of the year, but it's definitely one of the most disappointing for me. It's just meh. The kind of meh I'm not going to remember in T-minus 1 day. Yep, already forgot. All right, so the end of Oak Street. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? What's your favorite episode of The Outer Limits or The Twilight Zone? Whatever it is, whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.
Well, there's Jeremy's link. I like it slightly more than he did, unfortunately. I'm gonna go back into the playlist because I had reorganized it a bit. Alright, so we're gonna see this guy. I'm working on the playlist for Camp Miasma, that film. I'm just gonna call it Camp Miasma.
What's going on, everybody?
This is the Google AI Professional Certificate. Or to summarize a long document.
A nice time saver. But what if that small win?
So the end of Oak Street had a sort of
Not bad.
What's going on, everybody? This is an out of the theater reaction for the end of Oak Street. This is Anne Hathaway, Ewan McGregor. It is produced by J.J. Abrams, director of It Follows. And so, this is my initial thoughts as I'm walking out of the theater. You can hear everybody else walking out of the theater too. And I'll give a non-spoiler review in a couple days when the embargo lifts. So just going to kind of tell you what I'm feeling when I walked out of this one. I was very interested in this one because obviously of the cast of both Ewan McGregor and Anne Hathaway, who's been on fire this year. And so the idea that this is kind of this dinosaur movie with a lost element to it, like what happened to this town, what happened to Oak Street, why are there dinosaurs everywhere? And what I liked about the movie in general, and what I've been saying lately, I just wanted a movie that set me up the characters. I know what's going on now with Ewan McGregor, Anne Hathaway, what their dynamic is, what their history is, what the dilemma is going into this. And so when the thing finally happens with the dinosaurs and the craziness, you care, because you care about this story of the family themselves. And that's really what it is. It's those two plus their kids, and they're trying to survive. This is like if A24 made made Land of the Lost. Is kind of what this is, and it goes once you. I saw some people going, it takes a while to get going. I think it needs to take a little bit to get going because, like I said, you want to be invested in the family. And Anne Hathaway, Ewan McGregor's great in this, but Anne Hathaway carries this movie for sure. They have some swerves, some turns. It's bloody. This is a movie, I will tell you, that you should absolutely 100% see in the theater. If you watch my show, you know me. I say a lot of times, like, I don't know, this to me seems kind of like a streaming movie. This is a movie that was so much fun to watch in the theater because of the oohs and the ahs and the screaming. This is kind of like what you kind of hoped Jurassic Park would be now. This movie does that. It looks good. There's a lot. It's not like they don't like cheat the dinosaurs. You see them when they're a lot of them, and they look kind of what you think dinosaurs would look like. They're kind of like big ass crazy birds. And overall, I just really enjoyed this movie. I had fun watching this. There was a couple story beats that I was like, all right, we could have done without that. And that guy kind of seemed a little bumbling. But I got over it real quick with how much just excitement was in the air watching this movie. It's an amazing, other people, it's amazing and having some fun watching it. So I highly recommend it. This is a good one. This is a good one to watch in the theater for sure. The bucket of popcorn and just and investment. It's not just mindless. You have fun, and Anne Hathaway does a great job. So does Ewan McGregor. So what else can I say? So that's my out of the theater reaction for this movie. This is End of Oak Street. Are you going to see it? Do you want to check it out? Are you brand new to this channel? If so, click like, comment, and of course subscribe. Trying to get to 300,000 by the end of the year. You hit that button. We could do it. End of Oak Street. Highly recommend seeing this one in the theater. Bye.
There's a lot you can do with image generation in Ace Browser. Want to help us test it out?
Yeah.
So the End of Oak Street had a sort of interesting run-up to its release. At first there were people on social media rebelling against it because the WB marketing department chose to advertise the film using AI. And then just days before its release, it was getting a string of rave reviews that were making it look like the second coming of the original Jurassic Park. So naturally, we were getting sort of these extreme reactions on both sides. And in my experience, when this happens with a movie like this, the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. And now that I've seen it for myself, I can confirm that this movie is about as middle of the road as it gets. Which is actually kind of disappointing when you really think about it. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
A mysterious cosmic event rips Oak Street from suburbia and transports their neighborhood to someplace unknown. The Platt family soon discovers that their very survival depends on them sticking together as they navigate their now unrecognizable surroundings. So every once in a while, there's a movie that comes along that gets these early glowing reviews, and it kind of gives me a little bit of optimism after feeling somewhat meh after watching the trailers for said film. It plants the seed in my mind that maybe I was a little bit premature in my assumptions. And The End of Oak Street is very much one of those movies. Outside of having a very talented leading couple with Ewan McGregor and Anne Hathaway, and the same director as It Follows, I saw absolutely nothing special in the trailer for this movie. It looked like your run-of-the-mill standard modern blockbuster that could have just as easily been released on HBO Max, and nobody would have batted an eye.
Not impressed.
But then it started getting these Spielberg-esque comparisons, and I can definitely see where those people are coming from. The difference for me personally is that The End of Oak Street kind of falls short of what it needed to be if it's going to be put in those kinds of conversations. They say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and if that imitation is done well, in most cases, I agree. Unfortunately, this movie comes off more like a parody of or a Cliff Notes version of Spielberg than it does the real thing. Now, that's not to say that there weren't things in this movie that I did appreciate, especially early on. I think the concept alone is intriguing enough. It's got this mystery box element to it, something I wish that they actually would have embraced even more, if I'm being honest. Early on, it did have the look and vibe of those classic 80s adventure blockbusters other movies that it was clearly trying to reference. And I actually did like the fact that it doesn't waste too much time explaining things before all the shit hits the fan. In fact, prior to the cosmic event happening, a majority of the early runtime is dedicated to establishing our characters, which is never a bad thing. Something that the Jurassic Park franchise also used to be good at, giving us an actual reason to give a shit about these people in peril. We are introduced to a seemingly perfect family from the outside who are going through some stuff behind closed doors. We have a marriage that is sort of on the rocks. We have a father trying to hold it all together and stay positive as things are going south around him. We have a mother who is kind of having doubts about her current life because she was never able to pursue her dreams. We have a son who is acting out a bit as a result of all of this, and I'd be lying to you if I said it didn't make these characters initially very relatable.
Because it's all part of the plan.
There's a nice little metaphor throughout the film where they are showing clear parallels between being trapped in a marriage that you don't want to be in and being trapped in this life or death situation that they are later encountered with. And all of it is specifically designed to hopefully make these characters come to the realization that they should be thankful for what they have instead of worrying about what they don't have. It's a great message to contain within a movie, and again, early on, it really did make me feel like the movie was on to something. But then everything that comes after this mysterious cosmic event kind of undermines that setup, and the biggest reason for that mostly comes down to execution. Unfortunately, after this, outside of the dinosaur mayhem, which is always fun to watch, of course, this movie gets progressively more stupid based on a pure writing perspective. Listen, we can look past characters making dumb decisions in movies like this, and in scenarios like this, it happens in movies all the time. It helps if the movie captures our imagination in other ways, but unfortunately, this movie really didn't do that for me. So as a result, I started to become very distracted by said dumb decisions, as well as a lot of other things that they tried to do in this movie, but couldn't exactly stick the landing. There was a moment in this movie that was so bizarre, so weird, that it literally took me right out of it when it happened. Let's just say it involves dinosaur intercourse, and I understand it's supposed to be a moment of levity in this messed up situation that gives the characters a moment to breathe and realize some things about themselves. But the way that it's presented was just so hokey, so juvenile to me, that it literally made me say, what the f*** while I was sitting in the theater.
What the hell am I looking at? When does this happen in the movie?
It just felt so out of place, so forced, and like a lot of things in this movie, it felt a little bit too on the nose to be considered even remotely intelligent or entertaining. Even when this mysterious cosmic event happens, I never really felt the gravity of that situation being conveyed on screen. They actually seem to kind of move past the whole dinosaurs are right outside of our house thing fairly quickly. Remember that moment of wonder in the original Jurassic Park where Dr. Grant, Ellie, and Ian Malcolm see a dinosaur for the first time? Yeah, there's none of that here. It basically just comes down to, well, I guess we're dealing with this now, so let's figure out how to get out of here. There isn't a moment to breathe and to truly explore the ramifications of what's actually going on here, which I think is a missed opportunity for a concept like this. I mean, even when a major character dies in this movie, in sort of unexpected and shocking fashion, I didn't really feel anything like the movie clearly wanted me to. Of course, there's a moment of shock right after it happens for the audience and for the remaining characters. But it's up to the movie to sell me on what just happened emotionally. And to me, it just doesn't do a good job of that at all. Plus, there are multiple moments through this movie where our main characters are just walking aimlessly through this very dangerous environment, yelling and not being cautious at all. And it just made it very hard to buy into the idea that these characters would survive in this situation for any amount of time, because they pretty much all have the survival instincts of a wet paper bag. There's even a moment in the film where a schoolyard bully who was looking for revenge on our main kid prior to all of this going down pops back up again to continue his crusade while bloodthirsty dinosaurs are literally all around them. Absolutely no one would be concerned about this petty nonsense after watching most of their neighborhood get ripped apart by prehistoric creatures. And the whole scene is actually included to convey the message that none of this shit really matters anymore.
Message!
Stop browsing and applying for jobs you're never going to hear back from. Instead, work with Archer. Archer is your AI advocate in the job market. Archer will proactively find you new roles, explain why you're a good fit, and directly introduce you to the company that's hiring. Archer is completely free for candidates, and you are 5x more likely to hear back from the company you're applying for. Stop doom scrolling on LinkedIn and start working with Archer today.
Check that out. This is hackjob.com.
But the way that they included it actually undermines the message that they're trying to deliver. It's this kind of lazy, heavy-handed writing that absolutely plagues the last 2/3 of this movie. I mean, Anne Hathaway is essentially our main character, and she's always going to bring it from a pure performance perspective. And she does again in this movie. In fact, her performance is probably one of the few highlights of the film itself. But when her character seems to be more pissed off about her basement flooding and her losing the book that she was writing in the process than she does dinosaurs running around and killing everybody, it's a little bit hard to take her seriously. As far as the actual cosmic event goes, like I said early on, they don't waste a ton of time trying to explain it. And based on some of the writing, I'm glad that they didn't, because it actually would have came off even more stupid than it does. I did think that it was kind of convenient how the characters figured out what was going on without having much to go off of. But they do keep the mystery angle going for a while, and they give us these random portals that keep popping up everywhere. So our characters have something to strive for. But when you really stop and think about it all, it does seem very surface level and convenient. In fact, the entire resolution of this movie is far too convenient to the point that I felt very underwhelmed by it all. I guess the idea was to send the audience home happy with a crowd-pleasing moment. So they basically go full Back to the Future in the final sequence. But in doing so, they simultaneously create this time travel paradox that I'm not sure that you can explain away. When it kind of makes you think if they do this thing, won't that affect other things? And then they won't potentially be there to do the original thing when the time comes. I know this is very vague, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
Whoa, this is heavy. There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
It's the kind of thing a lot of time travel movies kind of gloss over. And in a lot of cases you can overlook it, but again, with a movie like this, where there is so many glaring holes, I just couldn't overlook it. It was just too neat of a finale for me, and the movie does absolutely nothing to explore the ramifications of messing with time in the way that the characters in this movie do. And I'm possibly thinking about this too much, and I'm sure I'm going to get comments that say exactly that, but it was impossible for me to overlook all of this just based on the sheer magnitude of the altered events. In the end, I think the dinosaur mayhem is what a lot of people are going to show up to see in this movie. And in that aspect, I think it succeeds. But this is definitely one of those movies where you desperately need to turn your brain off if you are going to truly enjoy it, because if you are not able to do that, things get more and more stupid as it goes on. To me, this movie had a ton of potential, just with the basic concept alone, but also given the fact that the big dinosaur franchise in Hollywood has gone to shit in recent years. So there was a bit of a void there that this film could have easily filled. Unfortunately, it was a bit too hokey, it was a bit too unintelligent, and it was a bit too juvenile to ever reach the heights that it could have. In effect, it does feel like a missed opportunity, a movie that could have been a lot better if it was given a much better script. In the end of Oak Street was mostly mediocre to me, and that's why I'm going to give it the careless Sam Gerard.
I don't care!
Y'all be cool. Right on.
Attention retirees, if you're willing
So,
to be at your computer from 9 a.m. to 10:45 a.m. on most weekdays, I can show you one simple trade that could potentially bang.
To be clear here, this is in fact Anne Hathaway's year. We're just being gifted incredible performance over and over again from her.
Our whole street has moved.
alright. We're gonna have to do a few things. First of all, we're gonna have to change the quality to this. It's gonna take a while. Share. Copy.
How the hell is that even possible?
Let it load just a tad bit. Go ahead and include that in the description here, so let's update it. I'm trying to update the thumbnail for this. I do things on the go, sometimes on the fly, because I said I was going to include, teenage sex and death at Camp Miasma in this, and I just have to remember that I just have to remember to do certain things, and it just takes time. Takes time. So. Gotta have a whole new set.
Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve. I'm a film and television critic, an anti-monarchist, except for when Amelia Mignonette Thermopolis Rinaldi has a new movie to release because we are guaranteed to be gifted a performance. Look at what she's offered us this year alone. Mother Mary, The Devil Wears Prada 2, The Odyssey, today's movie, which is The End of Oak Street, and Verity, which we will be covering in a couple of months from now, as we already published a source material video last year. Now, what of The End of Oak Street? The premise reads, after a mysterious cosmic event rips Oak Street from suburbia and transports their neighborhood to some place unknown, the Platt family soon discovers that their very survival depends on them sticking together as they navigate their now unrecognizable surroundings. Before seeing this movie, I believe I had seen the first trailer, or perhaps it was a teaser trailer. There was a fair bit of what was in the film that ended up feeling like a discovery upon actually sitting down to watch it in the cinema. It's offering sentimentality, silliness, and spectacle in equal measure. A domestic family drama meets a retro family adventure, further elevated by the depth of Anne Hathaway's performance. Now, the final trailer does reveal the main thing that this family is up against, so if you do not already know what that is, and you don't want to know beforehand, you have until the count of 3 to click off of this video. 3, 2, 1, it's dinosaurs. This patch of a suburban area somehow ends up back in dinosaur times, full of dinosaurs doing dinosaur things. However, the main trailer that I saw in the lead up to this was the first one, which was more so about selling fear, tension, suspense, and dread at some unknown threat. I didn't see the trailer many times though, and I hadn't given much thought to the details of what the film was going to be, so upon actually sitting down to watch it in full, I was somewhat surprised to realize that it was also a period piece. If you were to pause any of these promotional trailers that were released beforehand, that would have been easy to start to figure out that it was in fact set some point further back in time. The cars are smaller, the clothing that the characters are wearing, the interior design of family homes, among other things, were all indications that it is a period piece. The time setting is perfectly aligned with what type of movie this is. This type of man versus nature, sentimental big family adventure movie. The obvious comparison people have been making is Jurassic Park, simply because of the dinosaurs, but there are plenty of other films you could compare it to for one reason or another. Jumanji comes to mind. I would also mention Twister, although that's not a movie with children in the main ensemble of characters, but it does evoke a particular emotional tone and feeling where you have the juxtaposition of a more intimate relationship drama to explore at the human level, while on the larger scale, the humans are up against an enormous danger from nature. In a way, the eeriness of a suburban family ending up somewhere that is full of dinosaurs was synchronized with the eeriness of watching a movie that so accurately brought back the feeling of a bygone era of movies. It's just as much a time-traveling movie for the Platt family as it is for the audience, because we simply do not see new movies being created like this anymore.
Gather supplies. Grab anything you can use as a weapon.
In today's fast-moving job market, staying ahead means keeping your skills updated. That's why at University of Maryland Global Campus, we offer an affordable, skills-based education that helps push your capabilities and career forward. We'll equip you with the know-how to apply emerging technologies like AI, data science.
Yeah, school's overrated, man. All that online shit's overrated. Trust me, I got a degree from the University of Phoenix. Not worth a damn. Just not. It's cold for me to say that, but that's true. Sorry, I don't mean to sound like
I've mostly kept things broad, but now I want to have the room to say slightly more with my feedback. I'm not going to spoil the entire movie or even the major reveals or occurrences that happen further into the film's story, but I don't want to be quite as broad as I was before. When the film opens, viewers are introduced to a quaint suburban neighborhood. We have the Platt family, the mother Denise, played by Anne Hathaway, the father Greg, played by Ewan McGregor, the older daughter Audrey, played by Maisie Stella, whom I know first and foremost for her lead role in Megan Park's film from 2 years ago, and younger brother Brian, played by Christian Convery, whom I most remember for playing the younger version of the twins in Osgood Perkins' The Monkey. But this actor was also young Victor in Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, so that's quite a year to have. One of the very first things that's established about this family is that the parents, Denise and Greg, are having marital issues, and there is a concern, particularly on Denise's part, that this conflict is having a negative impact on the children. There is a stark contrast between the characters and performances of Denise and Greg. Anne Hathaway never gives anything less than 200% to a performance. It's as if she sprints and throws herself full speed into every role she does. I remember hearing her say in an interview that she does an enormous amount of work in preparing for a role, asking as many questions as she deems necessary, even if those questions and the amount of them seem like an extraordinary amount to others. And her explanation for doing this was that when it comes time to actually film the movie, she will be so fully in the know about her character, the vision for the overall film and its story, and as a result, she will be able to just go and perform exactly what's needed for the role. There will be no need to stop in the middle of filming to try to figure something out about her character, because she's already done all of that work before the movie started filming. That approach feels especially apparent in something like The End of Oak Street. Most of the time, the other performers in the movie are, at minimum, fine. The only time there was at least one bit of acting I didn't particularly believe in The End of Oak Street, it was when one of the actors was meant to be in the presence of a prehistoric creature that was moving by in front of them, and it was very clear that this actor either had no or very little experience having to do that type of acting where there's nothing actually there. Maybe a tennis ball or a man in a green suit at most. I don't know what the process was for making this movie, by the way. I haven't gone looking for any behind-the-scenes making of videos in order to do this review. It's merely based off of my impression of watching the film. For Greg, Ewan McGregor's character, my issue probably comes from a combination of how the character is written and also how Ewan is playing him, but I found him at times to be underwhelming to watch. I got the impression that they were going for something with the character where he's meant to be unassuming, a simple man, but when you put her up against the likes of Anne Hathaway, the stark contrast between them more so ends up coming across as though he appears at times like he's not trying hard enough. It feels like a performance that would have resonated better if they had instructed him to emote in such a way that is hinting at a deeper interiority of the character. He doesn't need to say more out loud, but by simply emoting and speaking his lines in a way that implies there is a lot more going on beneath the surface, he probably would have been more engaging to watch. The children are both good enough for what their roles are in a story like this. They're not being asked to have an enormous depth that goes far beyond the primary two-pronged conflict of the film, the family drama, and trying to not be eaten by dinosaurs. When I compare The End of Oak Street to the classics of a bygone era that are similar in concept and tone, the greatest obstacle The End of Oak Street has to overcome is the decades of nostalgia the most ardent fans of those movies already have for those releases. If that audience, who is probably the audience that is best suited to enjoy a movie like The End of Oak Street, if that audience doesn't have an open mind to meet a new film doing something similar, but on its own terms, they might dismiss it as simply not being good enough as those other classics that they have already imprinted on from a young age. However, if I compare The End of Oak Street to newer blockbusters that are released nowadays, which have been overproduced by a corporate committee to try to check boxes for the sake of becoming a 4-quadrant movie, there is no denying that The End of Oak Street is better than most of those. And when you reach the end of the film, it becomes apparent why. This isn't a major plot spoiler, I'm about to say, don't worry, even though I'm referring to the end of the film. The End of Oak Street was written, directed, and co-produced by one storyteller, and his name is David Robert Mitchell. The end of the film, in the credits, there is a dedication to his father. There is a particular type of emotional sentimentality that comes through in The End of Oak Street, and if you presume that the writer-director is creating this story in such a way that feels reminiscent of the films he might have watched with his father growing up, that does feel accurate to what the tone of this film is, as well as the concepts that it has. It's never so dangerous or scary to the point of being capable of traumatizing the adults in the audience who have the nostalgia for this era of movies. However, the threat of the dinosaurs does feel believable by way of the effectiveness of both the technical aspects of the filmmaking and the actors who have to do the running away. And running away quite often. It's a movie that is also aiming to be fun for the audience who shows up to see it at the cinema. You can tell because of how many times the film would do things like have the characters be in a particular location and the actors who have to do the running away. It's scary to the point of being capable of traumatizing the adults in the audience who have the nostalgia for this era of movies. However, the threat of the dinosaurs does feel believable by way of the effectiveness of both the technical aspects of the filmmaking and the actors who have to do the running away. And running away quite often. It's a movie that is also aiming to be fun for the audience who shows up to see it at the cinema. You can tell because of how many times the film would do things like have the characters be in a particular location, and then you see a dinosaur or dinosaurs lurking around in the background, and there will be a certain comedic twinge to the way the film lingers in those spaces. It's as if it's offering a wink and a nod to the audience to get ready, because we're about to start things up again of running and chasing and just enjoy the fun that's about to be had. The VFX used to bring these prehistoric creatures to life, I would say, are better than average, specifically by modern day blockbuster standards, which usually have awful VFX. Sometimes it looks better in the film. Other times it could have used perhaps a bit more time to fully cook. You can tell when certain prehistoric creatures were rendered by artists who had the means to do better quality work versus when they actually were given the time to do it well. Usually when it's a mix of a real set with real actors and their real props, and it's intermingling in some way, usually with a vast backdrop of some prehistoric setting, it might not be quite as convincing because the scale of how much needs to be rendered in that backdrop is such that you probably should have given those artists more time to work on that. Nonetheless, it overall adds up to a movie that was good fun for the whole family, or at least whomever in the family is old enough to attend a PG-13 movie. It's also a movie that is, surprisingly enough, only about an hour and a half long. If you are one of those people who complains about movies being too long as an excuse to not go to the cinema, even though you have no issues with binging mediocre direct-to-streaming releases at home, Here you have it. An easy breezy beautiful hour and a half with Anne Hathaway steering the ship. Take it or leave it. Stick around though on my channel because before you know it, it will be time to talk about the Verity movie. We already did a video, as I previously said, on the film's source material book. It will not be difficult for the film to be better than that book because Anne Hathaway is a much better actor than Colleen Hoover is a writer.
The AI revolution has largely been a story of the cloud, massive data centers consuming vast amounts of energy to process our personal information. This conversation shifts the focus toward decentralized local AI. Jonathan Schaefer is the inventor of Kind.
Right, welcome ladies and gents. At the end of Oak Street, we've got the first reactions, first reviews. I love doing these videos.
Sorry, we're not gonna watch him just yet.
A family from the 1980s gets transported back to the age of dinosaurs in the end of Oak Street. You know, you might think that a suburban mom doesn't stand a chance against these ancient predators, but Anne Hathaway. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Merle here with my review of The End of Oak Street, which is in theaters now. The movie is from writer-director David Robert Mitchell, who broke out with 2014's It Follows. This is his first film since 2018's Under the Silver Lake. And the producer being plastered all over the ads is J.J. Abrams, who's often known for projects that have a more intriguing premise than the delivery can match, which makes this movie potentially a great fit for him and his company Bad Robot. Now, as with any movie that J.J. Abrams has his name attached to, there's been a lot of speculation about whether this is tied into the Cloverfield universe or it's some backdoor to a greater movie cinematic universe. My advice would be going into this movie that you walk in expecting to enjoy it on its own terms. I think you're going to be setting yourself up in a better position that way. Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor star in the film as Denise and Greg Platt, a suburban couple whose ideal 1980s family exterior hides some serious relationship problems. The End of Oak Street doesn't just owe a debt to Steven Spielberg's cinematic suburbia of the 1980s, it pretty much owes its existence to it. This is a classic spooky things are happening next door movie, and this one wears its Amblin influence on its sleeve, right down to the split diopter shots, a technique of keeping two subjects of differing distances from the camera in focus. This has been in use for decades, but it was a particular favorite of Steven Spielberg and the other filmmakers of his generation. Denise and Greg's kids on its sleeve, right down to the split diopter shots, a technique of keeping two subjects of different
Had to go full screen with this. I was wondering what that shot was in the entirety of the film. Diopter shot. Yeah. We're kind of like deep focus with it. Oh, I know. That's why I said kind of like. That's why I said kind of like. It's not, but it's kind of like about the two subjects. You're just in the middle of the space in the middle. Like, diopter shot. That's pretty interesting. That is very interesting. Look more on that later. That's very interesting.
Differing distances from the camera in focus. This has been in use for decades, but it was a particular favorite of Steven Spielberg and the other filmmakers of his generation. Denise and Greg's kids are played by Maisie Stella, who I thought was great in the indie movie My Old Ass with Aubrey Plaza, and Christian Convery, who is the lead of the Netflix series Sweet Tooth. The whole family is thrown into a different kind of crisis when a mysterious event plucks their neighborhood out of the 80s and deposits it 200 million years in the past, where dinosaurs and other scary creatures see the new humans as nothing more than a tasty snack before dinner. There are lots of dinosaur movies out there, but apart from a few in the Jurassic Park series, there aren't a whole lot of good dinosaur movies out there. And if you're judging The End of Oak Street on the sliding dinosaur scale, then I think that this movie actually rates pretty high. I think that David Robert Mitchell did a really good job of selling just how surreal it would be to wake up one morning and basically be in an alien world. And there are a lot of great touches, like the addition of volcanoes and stuff in the background of the shots, as well as changes in the sound design once you go into the past in this movie, that I think really sell the reality and also the absurdity of this world. Like the great 80s movies of the past, there's also more than a tinge of deviousness in this film. Movies like this sometimes seem to take a sick pleasure in tormenting their characters. I mean, you could almost feel Steven Spielberg grinning as he put Indiana Jones through the ringer. And there's a lot of dark comedy in seeing hapless people like the ones in this movie running from dinosaurs. PJ Byrne gives an especially appropriate performance as one of the great character archetypes of the 1980s, the jerk. You know, the guy you love to hate. It's perfect casting, and he's really fun in this movie. The End of Oak Street could have easily stayed in that lane of a dark, surreal, black comedy, but it's dipping its toes into a lot of other genres. We have family drama, there's the creature feature side of it, there's a horror side of it, there's more than a dash of science fiction mixed in there, and that's why the movie felt a bit uneven to me, because every time the momentum seemed to be carrying it one way, it would either stop or abruptly change direction and go a different way. Sometimes that can keep you on your toes, and this movie did keep me on my toes. But a lot of times it just left the movie feeling a bit herky-jerky, like it didn't quite know what it wanted to be. The main thing I took away from this movie is that it is really weird, and I don't necessarily mean that in a negative way, because you're not exactly sure where it's going to take you next. There's one point, it's kind of a point at no return, where it got so ridiculous and also surprising that I thought, okay, great. Any shred of convention or what you might expect to happen is now out of the window, and we are truly going to be on a wild ride from here on out. And that's why it was a little disappointing for me that the movie then kind of took a return to convention for the rest of it. There are even some ramifications of things that happen in the third act that are dark, yes, but I think also really interesting, and they go completely unaddressed and ignored by the movie. I understand that this is a studio film with tens of millions of dollars invested in it, but it feels like it walks up to the edge and then backs away, which might be more of a crowd-pleasing approach, but I was ready to jump into the abyss with this movie. Maybe it would have imploded when it comes to audience reception, but my goodness, what an implosion it would have been. It kind of waffles between thumbing its nose at the conventions of being a family in crisis blockbuster and actually being one of those films. And the setup to this film is so 80s Spielberg that it feels like we're being set up for a parody or a complete subversion of what we're expecting, which you get sometimes. Michael Giacchino did the music for this film, which you're going to figure out after about 5 minutes. And he is at his peak John Williams-ist in this film. His score is so ever-present and at times repetitive that it also sometimes feels like, is this a John Williams-esque score, or is he kind of making fun of John Williams?
If you're running your own business, you need Symphony. Just tell it what's on your plate, and it jumps right in, analyzing ways to move your business forward.
I think it's the first one. Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor are also making some definitive choices with their performances, and this movie shows you what happens when a director tells Anne Hathaway to go bigger with her acting. Ewan McGregor does well as the sort of hapless 80s dad that we've seen before, but it feels like there's more to his character than we got to see. I wonder if maybe there was more stuff with him that didn't make the cut during post-production. The kids in the movie are, well, they're movie kids, which means in life-threatening situations like this, they can be counted on to make the absolute dumbest possible decisions. Brian, the son in particular, is so dumb that I kept waiting for someone in the movie to comment on how dumb he is, because the people in the audience will almost certainly be doing that. And yes, characters can be imperfect in a movie. They can make bad decisions, but there's a point at which it stretches credulity, at which point you just don't believe it anymore. To put this in Jurassic Park terms, it's not a situation with this kid, with this son Brian, like Tim in Jurassic Park, where the fence is about to be electrified, he knows it's about to be electrified, but he doesn't jump because he's scared. It's more like a situation in Jurassic Park if Tim walked up to an electric fence with a sign on it that says, "This is an electric fence and it's on," and he decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to climb that. It feels like David Robert Mitchell walked into Warner Brothers and pitched a truly insane Family Fights Dinosaurs movie that broke every rule and also explored the inherent ridiculousness and mortal peril that would come with a situation like this. Not in a movie way, but in a very realistic way. And it's like the executives at Warner Brothers said, yeah, that's a great idea, but you know what? Could you take it down about 50%? There is a movie inside this movie that completely dismantles the Spielberg-esque films that it takes inspiration from. But what we end up with is half dismantling that kind of movie and half replicating that kind of movie. And the combination of those two things didn't entirely work for me. But it also delivers some really good sequences, some of them scary, some of them thrilling, some of them both. It's got some truly bizarre and unpredictable moments. A lot of those are funny as well. And it's got some of the most effective creature sequences that I've seen in a while. I'm honestly really torn on this one, but ultimately I'm going to give it a rating of it's fine, because I don't think this version delivers on its potential. But it's with the caveat that I think that there are a lot of people that are going to absolutely love this movie, and a lot of others that are going to absolutely hate it. And you know what? If a big studio makes a dinosaur movie that doesn't devolve into mindless CGI and actually inspires genuine, passionate reactions, positive and negative, that's not such a bad thing. So those are my thoughts on The End of Oak Street. What do you think? Have you seen it? Are you planning to see it? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, stay tuned right here for the latest in movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.
The End of Oak Street. Is the latest dinosaur blockbuster. This time around, we follow a family in the 1980s. Everything's going just fine. They're having a summer
Oh, my bad. I didn't know that my mic was not on. Give that a second to buffer.
Walmart has everything on their list, and plenty they didn't expect.
Can't stand this game. There was a video I took of a guy earlier today. This was like about 10 hours ago. I just want to go ahead and say this Mexican American, and you could find the video in my video section on my channel. Just click you know where to find channel, I imagine. So and this Mexican had got me so pissed off today that, you know, as always, let me activate my camera. I literally wanted to kill him. And I mentioned something like about this earlier, about when I first started this live stream today. I've been having shit happen to me ever since I've been well, I'm not unemployed, but I've been without work for a good 2 months now, just about. And it's getting to the point where if I don't get back to work soon, I'm gonna lose my shit. I'm gonna lose my fucking mind, because I'm threatened to lose my home. This very room you're seeing, there's threat to me losing that. But I'm gonna lose my mind, because there are people in San Francisco that they really do piss me off. They, you know, they know how to hit. This Mexican, and he said he says he's American, that he was raised here, but I doubt it, because something about their customs. If they're Mexican American, their customs, and I don't care if YouTube flags me as racist. I don't give a damn. This is America, so everybody's racist. Something comes off as just downright disrespectful, because they come here either through themselves or their parents, and they feel entitled. They hate this country, America, but yet they choose to live here. And I'm like, dude, you can go back to Mexico and live there, because I want to go there. As cheap as it is, you know, you can live like a king in Mexico with the monthly the net income of less than $5,000. Yeah, you could. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'll get out of this.
Summer block party.
To pivot a bit here. Control T. How much does it cost to live comfortably mix? You need about, I would say, around 2,500 United States dollars, USD, per month, while a couple can be expected to spend less than twice that. And here's a breakdown, courteous of the AI. So one person can live comfortably for under $1,300 in a one bedroom. So basically, this right here would probably cost damn near $300 at most. Just groceries. I think the cheapest thing is household help and maid. And here's why I say that. You know, here's why I digress so much. This guy was so damn disrespectful to me today at a Safeway that he flat out called me a racist just because I asked him folks what countries he from, and he didn't want to answer that question, which was my first sense that he was going to be an asshole. I told him he would ask me where am I from, and I told him here. I told America, the United States of America. And he didn't want to answer the question, but eventually he said Mexico, and I was like, okay, he said he's Mexican. I'm like, okay, are you afraid of me? And he said no. And I said, okay, you shouldn't be, right? Because you came here. Here's the thing. If you're watching this and you, or I don't care what your ethnicity or your racial background is, I don't care. Do not come to my country if you don't want to know English or learn English, okay? Just gonna flat out tell you, we don't want you here. I don't care what it sounds like. Am I a racist? Absolutely. I'm an absolute racist. I don't care. No, fuck you, YouTube, fuck Google, fuck everybody. I'm a racist. Don't come to this country if you don't speak English. You know? If you're in this country, know English. If you know English, learn to be respectful or get your ass kicked. Because I'm still tempted to go after this fucking Mexican. This guy was a security guard. And you can check out the video, by the way. I called Safeway like a few hours later and I was like, I'll be back to make sure that guy's gone. He better be back by the time I go back. I get there. Because I promised him if I see his ass, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad for him. I'm gonna attack that man inside the store because I am sick and tired of security officers giving me a problem every single fucking. I'm tired of it. It's been happening since I moved to California, more particularly with the cities like Los Angeles, LA. They just overstepped their bounds, and it's very rarely do I see a white security guard. There was one white security guard in San Francisco. Here in San Francisco, it was in a Walgreens, Mission District. He wanted to show me a picture of his mixed girlfriend. I'm like, I don't care, dude, that you're still a racist. Because I was taking photos of a certain item. I was getting paid to do that. So, and I get why he was a little bit cautious or concerned, and you know, but his attitude is why I didn't want to talk to him. It's their attitude. It's the security officer's attitude, and I know this is completely pivoting and digressing from what I want to talk about. I know that. But I know security guards, they have to be on the watch or they can't put their hands on you unless you try to put your hands on somebody else. But I was wanting this guy to touch me because I was going to hit him with my cell phone. My cell phone, this phone right here, it's made out of titanium. Once I start, I don't stop. I was going to beat the shit out of him. I was going to make sure he bleed. I might go to Safeway tomorrow. I might go to the same fucking store just to see if he's there. Just to pick a fight. Because that fucking porter, he needs to be taught a lesson. This is the wrong country to come in. I don't care if he's born and raised here. I will personally beat his ass, put him in a body bag, and ship his ass to Mexico. And say, keep your people there. We don't want them here anymore. I'm glad Trump is president, by the way. And I'm one of those people that are willing to call ice on people. I've done it before. I have. I don't care about the whole leftist woke mindset. I'm not with those fuckers. I'm also not anti-woke, but still, I'm still pro-America. I still want my country back. I want these people to quit invading. Quit invading America. Just like Mexico doesn't want people, they don't want illegal immigrants in their country. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. I'm just saying. I don't care how that makes me look to my so-called subscribers. I don't got that many anyway. Like, I don't care. I'm just fed up with it, man. You know? I'm fed up with all this political garbage, really. But bringing that shit here to where I can't even shop without, I can't even go to a damn grocery store without a problem. And I had to ask my uncle. He had to find a workaround with his friend from India that he did work for. He had to send this guy money, and he had to send me money through China, which I spent most of it at the grocery store. About over $10 was taken from Apple thing, Apple subscription. So I removed my Chime debit card from my Apple account on my phone. So just saying. Anyway, let's get back on point here.
Kids are out playing, families are barbecuing, until one night, a big flash of light sends their entire neighborhood back to prehistoric times. From here, the family and their neighborhood must now try not to get eaten by dinosaurs. And that's all. Put a second, any spoilers to you guys. This will be a spoiler-free review. Dude, like, come on, you hear that premise and you go, yes, 10, 20 tickets. You cannot mess this movie up, right? Genuinely, the first thought I had when I saw the trailers, when I heard the premise, when I looked at this cast, it was like, man, please don't mess this up. One, it's set in the 80s, so you don't even have to worry about cell phones or TikTok brain rot kids. There's some weird sci-fi trippy stuff that allows dinosaurs to be mixed in, and you're seeing neighbors and people get eaten. I'm like, dude, okay, what's the catch here? Like, because I felt it, and we'll talk about the controversies. It felt like Warner Brothers did not know how to market this movie. Like, didn't that premise alone should sell a bunch of tickets, and this should be one of the most anticipated movies of this year for a lot of people. But I think you go out there and ask some people, they don't even know this movie is happening outside of us in our movie space. Then, of course, there was the crazy controversy going around about, like, them using AI dogs who had a podcast where I'm like, you have a movie with dinosaurs, Anne Hathaway, Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi is fighting dinosaurs, and you thought, let's throw in a prompt and see if some dogs can have a podcast. Oh, what has the world come to? How is that how you decide to market your dinosaur movie? Could you at least done AI dinosaur podcast? Okay, I would have hated that too, but what would that podcast been about, you know? And so really, that was just it. That was my biggest fear, and I even looking further into the movie, there was behind the scene issues. This movie was filmed 2 years ago, had several delays, tons of reshoots. You can see some of those reshoots in the beginning of the movie. It honestly felt like it was one of those unfortunate situations where awesome premise, tons of red flags. There's no way they're actually going to deliver on this being a fun ride. And guys, I sat down, I watched it. I had an absolute blast, and it sucks that this movie had some controversy, because I think it's pretty darn great. After having seen and witnessed this movie, I am even more mad with the way they chose to market it, because this is honestly a really great blockbuster. Like, this is the kind of movie that families would love to go see. Like, I'm gonna say it, and you're gonna think I'm crazy. This is better than any modern day Jurassic Park movie. I said it. I'm being honest. And I've really liked a lot of what modern day Jurassic Park has been. Not a ton, but this, oh my goodness, this gave me everything I was hoping it would be and so much more. It's not perfect, and I think there are going to be some people not as high on it on me for a couple of reasons we'll get into, but let me get into the things on how this movie actually won me over. For one, I think they do a great job of building up what's about to go down and happening. We have the setting, 1980s, which, hey, setting a movie in the 80s now could either go one or two ways. You just blast 80s songs and put people in tiny shorts and tight shirts like they do in this movie. Those were some tiny shorts on Ewan McGregor. Let me tell you, I was like, I'm thinking I'm about to see something here. But that decade has been so oversaturated in Hollywood, and I love the way this movie played it out, where it's just living in that time period without making it so overtly obvious to the audience. Like, oh, here's a famous 80s song. Here's like an 80s thing they did. It's like, it's just a regular day in the life until something random happens. Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor, I thought were great. They're dealing with some marital problems, trying to keep the family together. The kids can sense it, and even the brother and sister relationship that was going on here, I thought it was the perfect mix of, like, yeah, we're brother and sister, so we bicker a little bit, but at the end of the day, we're family and we get along. And I think that was really important, because believe it or not, once things start happening and this family is thrown into this prehistoric time and they have to figure out what are we going to do, the movie handles it so seriously. Like, it actually does a good job of building up the anxiety, the fear, the panic of, like, is this just our lives now? Are we stuck forever? How do we even get back? What do we do when food runs out of our house? All of our neighbors, are they gathering weapons? Should we be doing that? But it's too, like, it actually didn't treat the premise like a joke, and it was very engaging watching it go down. Because one of the other things I feared when watching the trailers is that it would be very paint by the numbers, that you could feel like how obvious the story would go go down. It's like, oh, they show up and some dinosaur thing happens, but then obviously they fight and then they find a way back, boom, bada bing. Like, a lot more went down, and I'm also glad they actually purposely hid a lot of dinosaur mayhem in the trailers. Maybe that was a personal decision, and it put the marketing team and Warner Brothers to a corner where they're like, well, if we can't show off all the dinosaurs and carnage that goes on in here, what do we do? AI dogs. Because believe it or not, there is actually a lot of dinosaur stuff that happens in this movie. A lot of variety in the prehistoric creatures. Not going to try to name any because, man, that dinosaur community is unforgiving. Oh, Chris, that is actually a Xenophino 29. Get your dinosaurs right. Had that happen once or twice. But, hey, we get a Spinosaurus, we get a T-Rex, we get this weird snake-looking thing that was awesome. And what made me kind of shocked at times is the movie's PG-13, but I think it pushes the limit of what PG-13 can be. I was already talking about how the movie has a good sense of fear and dread, where you feel it in the characters, where you can make the argument this is a horror movie, because it treats the situation horrifying and terrifying, which it is, right? You just wake up one day and dinosaurs are down your street. But there are several times throughout the movie where you'll see a dinosaur bite a neighbor, bite a kid, stumble upon several dead bodies where there's actually red blood, none of that dark brown blood that they do for PG-13, and one scene that genuinely had my jaw to the ground. I did not expect that from this movie and from a PG-13 dinosaur film that I think I would still say is geared towards families in the same way like a Jurassic Park movie is, right? But there was a scene, and you'll know it when you see it. When it goes down, you're going like, what? That just happened? And I love when a movie can invoke a sense of shock, because really, it didn't it feel slightly predictable in the way it was being presented? Like you were just gonna get mindless, random dinosaur violence with a family you kind of like, maybe you don't like all that much, and you're just burning an hour and 30 minutes. That's honestly the most hopeful thing I was feeling with this movie. Completely blew me away. I also love that the movie didn't linger too hard on the sci-fi reason for why all of this is happening. If you're going into this hoping that there's a long, logical explanation for why a whole neighborhood can be transported back in time, yeah, you're gonna be disappointed. But I didn't mind it because I just needed a reason to watch a suburban family fight off dinosaurs. And you know, getting back to what I was saying, I don't want to be too much of like a Jurassic Park hater, because I'm still yearning for those movies to get back to the feeling that, believe it or not, this movie gave me. I've seen a lot of people share this sentiment, and I totally agree because I was feeling it when watching it. This is honestly one of those perfect representations of a movie that feels like it could have been made in the 80s. You might have heard some movie fans describe this. It felt like an Amblin film, and that's famously Steven Spielberg's label. And a lot of movies that give off that vibe are things like E.T., Back to the Future, Goonies, the first Jurassic Park. There are these adventures where ordinary characters encounter big issues, but it feels adventurous, and it is that big movie feel that you yearn for. I feel like sometimes that's lacking when we go to the theater. I totally got that with End of Oak Street. Again, not saying that's a perfect movie or it's going to be one of the best films of the year, but like in just that type of vibe where it's a blockbuster. It's a popcorn flick where you don't also have to add on, you have to turn your brain off. No, you actually feel some emotions here, and there's real drama that goes on, especially like with Anne Hathaway's character. There's a scene where she looks at something in the basement, and that reaction that she has, it's sure, it's a quick moment, but it was a real moment you felt for that character because of everything they were setting up. And so really, I came out so happy and surprised, and honestly excited to watch it again, and hopeful that maybe they can turn this into a franchise, because I would love to see more random neighborhoods in different time periods either get sent back in time to prehistoric times, or heck, have a prehistoric chunk of land come to modern day in like a New York City. This movie gave me what I was hoping Jurassic World Dominion was going to be someday, you know, not this Fast and Furious with dinosaurs. No, it was, hey, what if just you went outside and a T-Rex was there? This movie delivered on that. So honestly, very happy with this. Now, I have to be honest, like I said, on some of the drawbacks, this movie's not perfect at all, and there are going to be some people that walk out going, it was fine, or it was okay. I think the biggest thing that people are going to be stuck on is some of the logic used at the end of this movie. That's where they most play onto the sci-fi elements, and there's decisions made where people are just gonna not let the movie immerse them and go, well, that doesn't make sense, or if you think about it, I don't think that can actually happen. It's like,
Start learning on the go today with Coursera Plus. Unlock unlimited access to over 10,000 courses and certificates from experts like Google, Meta, and more. Get started with a 7-day free trial. Subscribe today.
Yeah, I know.
What if you could make a song using only your voice? Let's start with the drums. I'm gonna hit drums and click cover. Yes. This is good. Okay, perfect. I feel like the song needs a rhythm guitar. Dun, 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 dun. Changing it to guitar. I'm gonna type in rhythm guitar. Okay, I like this track. I'm gonna copy it to the main. All right, now we're adding some bass. Bum, 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 bum.
Everybody needs to do that.
We just saw dinosaurs eat up a bunch of neighbors in the 80s, buddy. I don't think we're trying to so hard on the logic. It didn't bother me, but I did walk out talking to some people. They're like, the ending didn't really make that much sense. I do think at times there's some weird effects going on. Like I mentioned, this movie had some like production issues where they had to do reshoots or change things up. Really made it sound like the movie was maybe a mess and they fixed it up as much as they could. But you can tell in the movie some of those scenes that are reshot because Ewan McGregor goes from standing in a physical location to a green screen, and there are some times in effect that could have looked better than it did. That was it for me. I was completely engaged. I love the pacing of the movie and the way it unfolded the story. Some might find the beginning a little like dragging on of like, are you actually going to show us dinosaurs or just keep teasing them? But I think then since the rest of the movie gives you a lot of dinosaur action, I love the way they built up to that, how they took it serious. You could actually feel the fear within characters, family dynamic, and the drama going on between them was good. Genuinely, I thought this was honestly a really great time. So when it comes to the end of Oak Street, I'm gonna give action 3.5 stars. There's a good variety of prehistoric action with a ton of different dinosaurs, and I like how they were able to push the violent elements as far as they could go with a PG-13. Comedy in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. I was so happy the movie took most of it serious. While there's still a couple of jokes and actually some moments of levity, it's only sprinkled throughout the movie. Drama in the film, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. I really did like, again, how seriously they took this family in peril, the fear, the marital issues that the mom and dad face, and especially with Anne Hathaway's character. Like I said, there's a moment with her in the basement that I thought was some just really strong character stuff for the movie. Suspense in the movie, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars, and I'm genuinely surprised that's how high my suspense was, because I thought this would be an unfortunately very predictable, paint by the numbers, generic blockbuster, and no, it actually had a good rhythm to it, a good pace, and one giant shocking moment I really wasn't expecting at all. And horror in the film, I'm gonna give 2.5 stars. I think they actually do a good enough job of bringing the fear in these dinosaurs in certain situations, and how much this family gets backed into a corner, you do fear for how badly they'll get hurt. When looking at the 3 C's, I think most will be able to enjoy this, even the harsher critics who are like really upset with the movie for the AI. The movie's entertaining and well done enough that they'll be forgiving to the marketing department making that dumb decision. Casuals will really get into it, but I'm gonna go more cinephile because, again, End of Oak Street was kind of that classic blockbuster. Like, if this movie came out in the 80s, this would be a lot of people's favorite movies. It would probably be a franchise. It would be a huge deal. And I hope that kind of still happens for the movie now, because these are the kind of films I sometimes miss getting. So when it comes to End of Oak Street, while not a perfect movie and it's had its controversies, looking at the final product itself, I think it's not only a movie worth watching in theaters, it's also a movie worth adding to your personal collection.
That's a keeper.
Again, I really enjoyed this. I ended up being kind of surprised by it. I hope you guys give it a chance, especially if you're a dinosaur fan and just kind of wanted a fun family romp, or like me, if you've been dying for a really fun Jurassic Park movie, like this fills that void. Let me know your guys' thoughts, anything and everything. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.
Alright.
If you start calisthenics,
I said I'd pivot, and that's in fact what I'm gonna do. Refresh this page because I had included more. stuff. See, I got deep focus lens, and it's you see, she has her thumbnail doesn't include anything of the movie, and so, and everybody has their own style, but she's got 10,000 views on this one video. You know what? I want to start with simple. I'm going to start with cultural elixir after thinking. So here we go. Go ahead and copy the little URL, and we're just going to get started here.
Let's talk about teenage sex and death at Camp Miasma. This is Jane Schombrun's third film, and I will tell you, I've been anticipating this ever since I saw the TV Glow a couple of years back at Sundance. I was like, I'm ready to see whatever Jane does next.
Everyone's going to mention I saw the TV Glow. Everyone.
Next. Now, I was not the biggest fan of We're All Going to the World's Fair, which was their first film, but I really loved I Saw the TV Glow. I believe it was like my second or number one of that year. And Camp Miasma, I think, is going to be top 3 for me this year. No doubt about it. So let's get into my thoughts and opinions on it. I'm also going to be doing a breakdown where I talk more about the themes and what exactly they meant to me and what they meant to Jane as well. So stay tuned for that video probably after this video. So if you are into that video, make sure that you are hitting that subscribe button and notification bell. Follow us on Letterboxd, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff right here. Let's get into Camp Miasma. So the film stars Hannah Einbinder and also Gillian Anderson, Jack Haven, amongst many familiar faces here. Like, I'm telling you, once you see this movie, you'll know. You have Alex G here doing the music, who did, of course, the music for I Saw the TV Glow, and I still listen to that soundtrack today. And yes, this is going to have just as an amazing amount of needle drops and music and an incredible composition by Alex G that really does make this film feel so whole. Like, honestly, Alex G's music just accompanies Jane's vision so well, and I would love to see them keep working on many more films together, because I think the talent that Alex G puts out is just on another level. Like, he really transports you into these moody feelings that the filmmaker is giving, and it is just a feat to be seen. Now, Jane is a filmmaker that is so versatile, that really showcases that they aren't going to do the same old you're used to. So if you were coming into this movie expecting another I Saw the TV Glow, even another We're All Going to the World's Fair, if you love that movie, you're wrong. They are going to do something different. And I love how all 3 films are so different, but at their core, they feel very similar. And I'll talk more about that in my spoiler video that comes after this. I just wanted to get my review out first. Now, Hannah Einbinder here is a very talented actress. She is in the TV show Hacks. I have not watched Hacks, but I've heard so many great things about this. And I really love the sort of care she brings to her character of Chris here, who is a filmmaker who is getting their big break after their previous film went pretty big at Sundance. And they're trying to be careful with how they present themselves to the Hollywood system, while at the same time trying to show their affection for this Camp Miasma, which Camp Miasma in this universe is almost like a Friday the 13th and crossover with Sleepaway Camp. So it's a big slasher that sort of had a ton of sequels, but Hannah's character of Chris is very much so attached to the first film due to the actress that is in that movie, Billy, who is played by Gillian Anderson, who just brings so much of this role to life with how subdued her performance is, and it quickly evolves into more as she starts to peel the layers not only of her own character, but also of Chris. And it is just an amazing feat to see these two actresses go back and forth as we slowly see this movie get unfolded into what it really is. And I love how Jane here really puts so many layers of different mediums together to present a very incredible vision that they have. The film is shot in 35mm, and I think that the cinematographer Eric Yu did such a beautiful job here because it is just such a textured work here. As you see the film give you the perspective of these two women who are just trying to figure out where they fit today, and especially from where they came from and where they're going, and they're just trying to get to the bottom of what exactly it means to be living. And at the same time, we're still exploring this lost media of sorts that is Camp Miasma, this movie, and it's presented to us and the point of views that it goes back and forth with, as well as the different vibes that it's giving off. It's so dreamlike Lynchian, you could almost say, and I think it really is calling out so much of our culture today, especially when it comes to films and how we treated film criticism as well as film appreciation, and also how we see the works of the past with the lenses of today. And I think Jane is going through so many ideas here, and I'm going to get to the bottom of them in my spoiler breakdown, so stay tuned for that. But I think that they really have delivered such a visually incredible film. I think one of the best visual films we've got in a long time, and I think there's so much to unpack here. I need a second rewatch for sure, but I want to get my thoughts out on one rewatch, well, on my first watch, and then I'll do another video later down the road when I give it a second watch on what I uncovered after. I think it is worth seeing in a theater. It is such a gorgeous film on the biggest screen. There is such a beautiful soundtrack as well, and I think that Hannah Einbinder and Gillian Anderson have such an incredible chemistry, some of the best chemistry I've seen in a long time. They really are pouring their hearts and leaving it all on the table for you, and it's just such a feat to see. I think it's incredible to see Jane wearing her inspirations on her sleeves, and also just giving such an incredible, I would say, ode to these films of the past, the slasher genre, which are almost for the most part in Hollywood and film criticism sort of the butt of the joke a lot of the times. But Jane here is showcasing and appreciating how raw and true they really are, and I think that it is just a beautiful thing to see in this whole film. So overall, I really do think Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma is one of the best films of the year. I think that I would say it is definitely Jane's best work so far, although I do like I Saw the TV Glow a bit more myself. I just see that this is sort of evolving the ideas that we saw in I See the TV Glow and fleshing them out a bit more. But I do want to give a rewatch to TV Glow as well as Camp Miasma, and I do still have to go back and see We're All Going to the World's Fair and give it another shot. But I think that what we see Jane do through each film is just incredible stuff, and so personal, and yet so pop culture-ish, right? It's commentary on the culture as well as the art, but also at the same time it feels personal to them, and they've gone on to talk about their experience in being trans and sort of coming out as their career has progressed now, and they've become more of a prominent figure in Hollywood and what that brings to the table. So it's almost like each film feels like a diary of what they're going through, and at the same time still sort of talking about these things that are important to them and really dissecting what it means to be a trans woman in today's age and coming from the past that they came from, right? So I really love how personal it is. I think they pick some incredible people to collab with as well, and that's what really elevates these projects a lot more. Jack Haven, of course, now being in this project, and they were also in I Saw the TV Glow, and I am very excited to see what Jane does next, because each film they've done so far is so different from the other one, but at its core, you know it is a Jane Chambrun film, and you really just love it, honestly. A lot of very special guests in this movie, a lot of surprises, and I think that we are definitely have a movie that's going to be a contender for one of the best single shot massacres we've seen. Yes, this movie at its core is about these two women, but nonetheless, Jane showcases what they love about the slasher genre so much and really put it front and center. Little Death is on their way to become a slasher icon, mark my words. And I really love how this had a movie within a movie, and it gets a little bit crazier than that. But I think that this is definitely one of those that you do not want to miss, and check it out whenever you can. I know it's playing in limited release so far. I think it should expand more next week, so go catch it if you can. It is one of those movies you can't miss. But let me know your thoughts and opinions on it. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on the spoiler video. Follow us on Letterboxd, TikTok, Instagram as well if you haven't. And as always, that is going to do it for me. I'll see all of you next time. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this movie in the comments down below. Stay tuned for the spoiler video. Stay safe, stay positive.
I'm a sales rep, so I'm constantly traveling for work over and over again, booking the same flights, same hotels. It's exactly the same each time, over and over again. Then I started working with Navan Edge. Wow, completely different. So now I'll just say something like Miami again, add my dates, ask for my usuals, and Navan Edge does the heavy lifting. It knows me, it knows my routine, it even knows my loyalties, right? So, like, hey Matt, book at this hotel instead of that one and you'll get that Marriott status upgrade you've been looking for. Just drop the details of your next work trip into Navan Edge and give it a try.
Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. This was directed by Jane Schoenbrum. I've been really excited about this movie due to the director's previous work, I Saw the TV Glow, which I did review at the time. It was a movie that I found frustrating narratively, but cinematically, I thought it was an extraordinary experience, just the ambiance visually. I walked into this movie virtually knowing nothing at all about the plot, and man, I will say, I have never seen a movie like this one before. It is extremely millennial and Gen Z coded, and it's made in this really lo-fi but elevated neon-tinged way, which is quite popular these days. And I think it is really going to connect with certain niche art house audiences. It is extremely ambitious conceptually, more than anything that I saw the TV Glow by comparison. And when I do reviews and I talk a lot about pastiche filmmaking, postmodern filmmaking, you do not get any more meta than this. This is one of the most meta movies I have ever seen, and I say that as somebody who thinks that Inland Empire is one of David Lynch's best movies. I often describe postmodern cinema or post-postmodern cinema, whatever you want to say, as if we are experiencing pop culture of the history of cinema through some funhouse mirror in a carnival, or perhaps like a mirror that is fractured. But this one is more like seeing a fractured reflection inside of another fractured reflection inside of another reflection, and so on and so forth. And we go down these wormholes narratively. You go down one and then the other and then the other, and it's as if we're trying to loosen the confines of voyeurism to find that primal connection. Schoenbrum to me fully represents a certain type of generation. You know, I've talked about this before, but you know, I think about the early filmmakers in the early days of Hollywood, and it's like they didn't have cinema as a catalyst for their influences. They had paintings and plays, operas. Many of those artists came from nothing and were self-made, and eventually generations of filmmakers exist that were brought up on those films, the film school brat generation and so on, and we start to find this weird lull where we're falling into pastiche, a copy of a copy, a reflection of a reflection. Then you look at millennials and Gen Z, and they have been brought up on media and entertainment in ways that no other generation has before it, and that creates a certain filtering of the world. We seem to live voyeuristically more than any other generation, and we project all of our desires and our needs to connect and live onto these fictional characters that we see before us, which in turn creates a very disconnected, very on the spectrum, anxiety-ridden generation, incapable or unwilling, maybe I should say, to feel alive through tangible experiences, without creating some sort of performative judgment that you have to be conscious of because of social media. And I think that creates this ambient sort of melancholia. But this isn't some dark and dour film to me. This film is quite funny and quite quirky. Where I Saw the TV Glow reminded me more of something like Donnie Darko. This movie reminds me of something like Twin Peaks by way of Videodrome by David Cronenberg. And we're leaning much more into the horror-y genre than just standard horror. And like I said, it's obviously very meta, and our main character, we can assume here, is meant to be another version of the real director. The story is we have this 29-year-old queer woman played by Hannah Einbinder, and she is very academic, a filmmaker who is a massive fan of these slasher slasher movies that were really popular in the 1980s called Camp Miasma. She is tasked with the job of reimagining the genre for a current generation in a more elevated art house sort of way that can make, of course, the proper commentary on all of these outdated, archaic ideas from the original movies. She goes out to meet one of the original cast members of the movie in this very Norma Desmond haunted house sort of setup, and honestly, that's all I want to say about it. From there, it swirls into this vortex of surreal, psychedelic, sexual anarchy of sorts. One thing that stood out to me immediately in this movie was just the attention to detail within the lore. The opening credits just on their own, it includes so much about this completely fictional Camp Miasma slasher series, but yet it seems so real. I kind of want to see this movie again once it's streaming so I can pause it and I can actually go in and read all of the different articles, look at the fake posters. It's like we are dialing right in on the perfect decimal point that is the director's wavelength. To me, this film is, yes, it is about the toxic connections that we form with mass-produced media, the way we consume it, and even just in this movie, the way it's all littered with like Sour Patch Kids and Skittles. There's also something pure within that the movie wants to explore about the human experience, even if it is indirect. There is something extremely contradictory about humans, that they want to be both a victim and a perpetrator. We want to be submissive as well as dominant, in complete control and yet liberated from that control. My favorite scene, actually, or one of my favorite scenes, I should say, is the dinner scene, the first dinner scene between the older actress played by Gillian Anderson and, of course, the young director. And the director is this neurotic academic, very performatively aware of the social aspects of the film that she thinks need to be updated. Or I should say what the studio wants her to update, that she has to address race and queerness apparently as if it is some requirement. And to a degree you can understand that, but all of this awareness in a way blocks her ability to be honest with herself and confront her primal desire. She has to analyze and intellectualize the things that evoke emotion from her to give her that control, but she also uses that as her performative identity. At a certain point, it's like trying to analyze the sexual fluids on a bed in the aftermath of ecstasy rather than actually experiencing the ecstasy. It's like, which one would you rather do? I think I know her inability to recognize her own failures and her own loneliness. It uses those details, like the awkwardness between very casual human interaction, like at the grocery store or something like that, to kind of act as this crack in the facade. And that's going to slowly drag us in to this void, but there's a lot of humor there that I think works. Sometimes we're practically nosediving into camp. One of my favorite lines is when the Gillian Anderson character brings out a plate of KFC and she says with such passion, "Do you..."
Before Merit America, Amy was struggling financially as a single parent. She worked as a truck operator, and like 53 million other Americans,
do you like dipping sauces? And the director says, I love dipping sauces. And yeah, it's very reminiscent of the doggy chow line in Showgirls, of course. The boldness of this whole thing truly astounded me. I mean, there are so many moments in this movie that are hypnotic visually and memorable, so tonally strange, and I loved that. And yet it's that boldness to gleefully relish in all of the meta commentary that I often think becomes a detriment to the material overall. As much as we want to find that sweet spot, no pun intended, where we can be conscious of all the archaic tropes of the past and the social confines of the media while also embracing the viscera and the heart of it, I don't know if it necessarily always succeeds there. It feels like it's trying to fight between two different perspectives. I do feel that the film starts to get weighed down by the meta commentary, and it starts to get too wrapped up in the need to explore itself. That ultimately stifles the vortex so far as tension is concerned, and so we can't relent to the void in the way that I think is crucial so far as finding that enlightenment. Because I think once you release after that climax and make of that what you will, there is a simplicity to everything afterwards, to the human experience that, yeah, again, I think is important to recognize. It rests on the laurels of its symbolism where, yes, obviously that is part of the point, but it starts to feel lofty in ways that I don't think the film has fully earned. While again, I think it's a lot more creative in certain ways, a lot more ambitious than a movie like I Saw the TV Glow, I have to admit there's something about that movie where the slow simplicity of it really settled into my bones in a way that I miss here tonally. There's just this dull ache of pain and emptiness that felt so unique at the heart of that movie, very soulful, and I tend to prefer that over the more hipstery, conscious satire. Like I said, this movie is very much designed for a certain type of person. When I walked into the theater or in the theater lobby, I saw certain people walking in and I instantly knew which ones were going to see this movie. And I was right. I think, though, if you are a cinephile, this is a must-see, even if it can be a struggle here and there. People of a certain age, again, of a certain demographic, I think they're going to struggle. But again, if this movie sounds like you, then it probably is.
Certain demographic, she means the anti-wokers. The people who don't like these types of films. But yet they watch them anyway.
To which I say, absolutely go see this and make your own judgments. But that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits and I also sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are great. Guys, thank you. Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing The End of Oak Street. This was directed by David Robert Mitchell. Initially when I saw the trailer for this movie, I thought, kind of seems like a throwaway, but there are obviously some strong people attached to it, which kept me intrigued. Obviously the star is at the center of the film, but more importantly for me, it's the writer-director, David Robert Mitchell, who did one of my favorite horror films of the last 15 years, It Follows. So it made me think, okay, maybe there will be something unique about this compared to your usual end of the summer fare. While this movie is a little bit uneven overall, I have to say I found it, for the most part, pretty satisfying. It's easily one of the best dinosaur movies I have seen since the original Jurassic Park in 1993. It's a very low bar, but still. At its best, it feels very nostalgic and very much in the spirit of summer movies. And to me, it hit kind of like a malt shake in the middle of July. I found that very refreshing compared to like the endlessly padded MCU action sequences that drag the runtime of those big movies to nearly 3 hours, and I just kind of disassociate. This is a lot closer to the kinds of movies that I crave when it comes to blockbusters. It is drama that is punctuated by the big action sequences and not the other way around. This movie is very much in the spirit of the Steven Spielberg Amblin Entertainment era. Yet with this film, it doesn't feel fully like some novelty homage, kind of like Super 8 with, directed by J.J. Abrams. This feels like a piece that is more original. It's its own thing, but it still, is inspired by Steven Spielberg, movies like Poltergeist, that sort of thing. But this movie moves in a different way. It carries the suspense, the emotion, the humor in a way where it all feels fairly balanced. And I think strategically, this movie tries to separate itself from the typical shocks, the typical jump scares, because it does keep you guessing. I really felt this movie emotionally all the way through it, and I think that's really important. Even when the movie feels a little bit thin in sections, or when we don't make the most out of all of our character arcs, it still keeps the important aspects of things in focus, because after all, this is a family drama, plain and simple. Most big Hollywood dramas take some big relatable human element like family quarreling, divorce, whatever it is, like in the case of this movie, and then they ramp up the stakes in this massive survival situation to remind us that there's no place like home, like Dorothy says, and home is family here. Now, in real life, a suburban family of this type, the threat would likely be something like cancer, the threat of losing a family member, but here it's the threat of prehistoric insects and dinosaurs run amok. They're all around Oak Street miraculously. It's like, how did they get there? Where did they come from? And that's the fun of this whole thing. I love how the first act of this movie is a real exercise in tension building. It's almost like they're trying to challenge themselves to see how long they can stretch the elasticity of that tension before it pops, and it allows us to really marinate in that early 1980s suburbia. It plants little pieces of suspense here and there throughout the population of Oak Street. You have the old lady down the street, and she used to be an editor for her husband who was once a writer. You have the tightly wound neighbor who is always angry at the family dog. And honestly, it's the mise-en-scene that is endlessly enjoyable to dissect within each frame. It's just they put a lot of care into making this feel like a real street that would have existed at the time. The houses are just...
Whoa. What's that? I just built a budgeting app in Base 44.
Guys, Nina just built an app.
Impossible.
Nina can't code.
Interesting. Can it generate reports?
It can now.
Nice.
So you're saying we can all build apps now?
Yeah.
I'm on lunch. I gotta make a call.
I'll be
in my
right
office. Just built an inventory tracker. Protein calculator. Book sharing app.
A workflow manager that
Tracks who still owes for the group lunch.
Trash duty schedule.
Since no one seems to care.
Just built a...
They're perfect. Everything from the radiators, the newspaper clippings that are on the refrigerators of all the houses. It's so specific, again, in the world building, and it makes you feel like you're a part of this world. The whole thing has a very beach scene. In Jaws type of energy, and I love that the camera feels very controlled throughout, the dolly shots, the pans. I feel like a lot of those shots navigate the tension quite well. There's a lot of split diopter types of shots in this, and it connects the family to each other, whether it's an idea or whatever, but then that also creates a distance between other family members visually, and all of that I thought, again, it's fizzy and fun. Anne Hathaway as the mother here, she is the strength and the backbone of this entire film. She grounds it in a realism that I think is fully appropriate, and her character self-actualizes the most. In the beginning of the movie, we find out that she has this creative side to herself. It turns out she's a very talented writer, but she's had to hide that side of herself from her family, her husband, over time to be the mother that she needs to be. And over time, that has created some resentment, some anger. Ewan McGregor plays the perfect, typical suburban dad of the time. He has a drinking problem. He also feels a lot of shame due to his inability to financially support his family as the man of the house. So he's picking up all of these odd jobs here and there. His own survival mechanism in these situations is to prop up his ego with this knee-jerk positivity, very like everything will be fine, upward and onward attitude, which here seems to mask the issues more than it addresses them. The kids also have their own, conflicts. I think the mother and the daughter are very much connected emotionally, just like the dad and the son are to a certain degree. And I think despite their troubles, the parents, they're really trying to hold the family together, and you sense they're good people. And that's what makes the danger factor in this movie so interesting. The dinosaurs themselves, they feel very incidental. It's kind of like, oh, we just dropped in here in this prehistoric era. It's like, oh, there's a dinosaur over here. There's one, back here in the corner. And while that is terrifying to a degree, there's also a humor to that. Sure, this can be silly at times, but I tend to hold suspension of disbelief here because, again, these are characters I care about and I want to see where they're going. Is anything in here as good as the action sequences in Jurassic Park? Oh, hell no, there ain't nothing like that big T-Rex car sequence in the rain. And yet, like I said, it finds its own energy. Like It Follows, the danger is kind of serendipitous in the frame. It's like it's in the background, in the distance, and it slowly comes to the forefront where you can't ignore it. And it uses the dinosaurs and a lot of the actions with the dinosaurs as the emotional metaphors, the emotional beats, as a way to release the emotion of a lot of the family dynamic that's going on. Like there's a scene where Anne Hathaway is slashing at this dinosaur and she is screaming and all of that. And it's not meant to be just for the sensationalism of it. It's because she was pushed to emotional extremes in the previous scene. And so this is her outlet. So all of it connects and feels natural in a context. One of my favorite scenes, moments in the entire film, uses the idea of terror and pain and finds a strange humor in it. As in life, sometimes the stakes are just so high that you have to find humor in it to save your life. And sometimes that can reset you emotionally in a way and change the way that you view things in your personal life. And I think this film is always paying attention to those types of moments. Having said all of that, I think this movie really drops off at the end of it. We tease some really interesting ideas so far as the science fiction aspects of the story, but they're barely explored. Just as it's starting to get very interesting, we cut it off, and thus the ending feels abrupt, and a lot of the characters slide into these convenient conclusions, which makes a lot of that self-actualization work previously kind of feel cheap in the end. I think there's something more complex and a lot darker that is yearning to break free at the base of this movie that is similar to It Follows. And I can feel in this movie this constant wrestling of trying to find that summer movie blockbuster accessibility, but also trying to blend the more complex emotional elements that tend to be more art house. It kind of bugs me that the McGregor character doesn't have the chance to self-actualize on the level of the Anne Hathaway character. She really has her moment, I think, to clean house psychologically, deal with the pieces of herself that she needs to, but his optimism and his lack of perceptiveness ultimately gets him in trouble in ways that I don't think he fully understands. And the same with the kids. I like those characters, and yet there was something about it where it felt like we weren't breaking in the characters in the way that we need to. And then there's this extra character in the movie that to me doesn't really enhance anything that already existed within the family. Lots of side plots exist here. Some of them work, some of them don't. At times it felt like we have a wheel that's just kind of spinning, getting stuck in the mud, and that could be frustrating. But I really enjoyed this film. It felt like a movie, like a drive-in movie, where you're sitting there, you roll down the window and you just kind of have your bare feet dangling outside the window. It's fun. I say definitely see this as kind of a great way to end the summer movie season. But that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits and I also sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are great. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members.
Do you ever have an idea for an app and wish you could bring it to life? Now you can. The Google AI Professional Certificate
I was completely engaged. I love the pacing of the movie and the way it
Cerebral, artistic, and sapphic. It's time to take a trip to Camp Miasma.
Someone's gotta be here when Little Death comes back. Little Death isn't real. Well, not with that attitude, he isn't.
Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve. I'm an independent film and television critic, and I love to see a bit of yearning back in a theatrical release. Today, I'm reviewing Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, the latest offering from director Jane Schönbrunn, who is best known to the cinephiles for their previous film, I Saw the TV Glow, a film which stars Justice Smith, whom I recently found out has been cast to play Harris in Heated Rivalry Season 2. That is a phenomenal casting choice, by the way. Having seen him in many other things, I know he can deliver the energy and personable, endearing qualities of that character. I Saw the TV Glow also stars Jack Haven, who is now one of the leads of Camp Miasma. The thing about this movie is that it's nice, it's different, it's unusual. It's a love letter to various classic horror films while also flipping the genre's tropes and conventions upside down. Instead of a simple slasher, we see a maladaptive daydream probing into yearning, desire, and discovery. If you don't already know, I will tell you. This movie is about a 29-year-old filmmaker, Chris, played by the ever-so-iconic Hannah Einbinder, who has been hired to direct a reboot, a resurrection, as it were, of a long-running horror film series that has been on a downward spiral for quite some time. As part of her creative development process, Chris travels to meet with Billy Presley, played by Gillian Anderson. Billy played the final girl of the first Camp Miasma film. Chris is openly queer and very aware of the expectations that the industry higher-ups have placed upon her because of that identity and perspective. They want her to resurrect a practically dead horror IP for their own financial gain, and do so by making it elevated horror, and something that will rework the problematic story aspects of the original Camp Miasma, not because they actually care about having empathy for the groups that might have been harmed or taken issue with the problematic ideas presented in the old Camp Miasma film, but because these higher-ups want a new audience to pay money to see a new Camp Miasma film, which they presumably will not do if they were to continue to perpetuate problematic stereotypes. Now is probably a good time to point out that if you are not familiar with certain conventions of the horror genre, particularly slashers, stories that take place out somewhere in the woods, you might struggle to follow what this new story is doing. It's not shy about making its influences very clear. You have a killer emerging from the water, among other things that feels reminiscent of certain aspects of the Friday the 13th series. When Chris is on her way to meet Billy for the first time, she stops at a gas station to pick up snacks. How many times by now have we seen horror films where the main group of characters stop at a gas station at the beginning of their journey and probably have an encounter with an unfriendly local while there, who will of course say something ominous and foreboding? There's also, unsurprisingly, a heavy influence from Sleepaway Camp. If you don't know about Sleepaway Camp and the discourse that has unfolded from that film, I struggle to imagine how you will see Camp Miasma and follow more of the layers of its story. The very nature of older films being deemed problematic as the decades go by, or being reinterpreted and reclaimed as relating to certain marginalized perspectives, that's all woven into the fabric of this story. When you watch something like Camp Miasma, it becomes evident how different a movie feels when it's being made from the singular perspective of a creative storyteller versus being made by a bunch of corporate interests all vying for their ideas to override others, probably for the sake of financial profit as opposed to making a really good story. What? Wait, this is gold.
There's a lot you can do with image generation in Ace Browser. Want to help us test it out? Yeah, let's do it.
What's your favorite color?
Lavender.
Favorite animal?
One thing I would note is that something like Camp Miasma, I don't think it's a film that works for people who do not already have a passion for film and are probably as well following the ongoings of the film industry. There is so much commentary in this movie about conventions and tropes of the horror genre, the current state of Hollywood as an industry, this push for finding a way to jolt life back into pre-existing IPs to maximize profits. If you're just a casual moviegoer who only goes to the cinema when there is an extremely mainstream, commercial, popular movie releasing, you might be confused by the surrealism and eccentricities of a film like
He's referring to, of course, Spider-Man Brand New Day, and probably the Odyssey. It's two of them. Yeah. Most definitely Spider-Man. It's a maybe on the Odyssey, but still.
Camp Miasma. That being said, if you're someone that's bothering to watch a movie review on YouTube about the latest Jane Schönbrunn film that won a special award at the Cannes Film Festival, you're probably in the know to enough of an extent to find something to appreciate in Camp Miasma. As Chris and Billy begin to get to know one another better, they begin to spiral deeper into a type of psychosexual madness. But it's also, in many ways, less about madness as it is about revealing the true desire and longing within oneself. It's about having a personal breakthrough to be liberated from feeling repressed. Jack Haven plays the villain of Camp Miasma, the often masked killer who is responsible for the slashing one would expect to see in a brand new slasher film. The material they give that character is something incredibly unique. Oftentimes there is a stillness and stoicism to a lot of these types of masked figures in horror series. They're less likely to speak or emote, and you're probably going to know very limited information about them. But in this, what they're doing with the character is blurring the lines between reality and fiction in a way that feels wholly innovative to the long-standing pattern we see nowadays of meta-storytelling and reboots being a trend that has now started to grow stale. If there's one nitpick I would offer to critique Camp Miasma, it's that some of the VFX that are used for some of the slasher sequences were not quite done to the standard that I personally would have liked. It would cause brief flashes of breaking my immersion in the story. Apart from that, though, it's a very beautifully put together, stylish film. There's a dreamy warmth to this that we almost never see nowadays in new horror films or slasher films specifically. There was even a point where we see Chris walking in front of what's seemingly meant to be the snowy backdrop of the forest setting, but you can clearly see the texture of a painted backdrop, and that's an example of how Camp Miasma blurs the line between the viewer of film and the characters in a film. Hannah Einbinder and Gillian Anderson have incredible chemistry. If their connection wasn't believable, this movie simply would not work. It hinges on the experience of luxuriating in that connection between them, but also of Chris exploring and uncovering certain things within herself.
Sex seems so easy for so many people, but I've never been able to get there with someone else unless I'm really far away in my head.
I've mostly stayed vague and broad in talking about the film thus far, but now I want to be able to talk about some of the material with greater specificity. That does not mean that I'm going to spoil everything that's in Camp Miasma, but maybe some details that you might not already know if you haven't watched any promotional interviews about the film. This movie is heavily inspired by Jane Schönbrunn learning to enjoy sex after transitioning. They have spoken in interviews about previously feeling dysphoric and repressed within their body, and as a result, not being able to enjoy those experiences of physical intimacy with their spouse. In this new movie, Chris opens up to Billy about how she struggles to enjoy sex, and Hannah Einbinder performs the hell out of what's more or less a monologue about how on the rare occasions when she is able to finish, she's essentially engaging in maladaptive daydreaming. She's imagining herself as being in the original Camp Miasma movie. This movie was something that Chris watched when she was young. The original Camp Miasma film that Billy starred in was something very formative to Chris when she was growing up. Chris tells Billy that it facilitated her queer awakening. Chris also says in this monologue that when she's engaging in this maladaptive daydreaming, she imagines herself transforming into this or that character from the movie. On the one hand, it's not exactly subtle in its storytelling, it's very matter of fact in presenting Jane's perspective as the writer and director of this movie. However, if you do not know that Jane is transfeminine and non-binary, you might be very confused when watching Camp Miasma for the first time. Moreover, Jack Haven, who plays the killer in this movie, the character's name is Little Death. For anyone who didn't already know this, Little Death is also known as La Petite Mort. I already knew about this expression, and as such, when I was watching this film for the first time, and I learned that this was the character's name, it was a massive clue as to what this story was going to be talking about or what it was alluding to. I didn't look up interviews of Jane talking about this film until after I had watched it for the first time. Moreover, when you see Little Death's backstory, who they were before they became a masked killer running around slashing people, they're said to be someone that would alternate spending time as a boy or a girl. And then Little Death makes a very specific face or a facial expression. And it was immediately apparent that that was being done as an homage to Sleepaway Camp. Again, if you are not already familiar with Sleepaway Camp and the discourse that has followed that film since it was released, it's difficult to conceptualize how you're going to understand that reference and the role that it plays in Camp Miasma. Little Death makes this face, and it's shown more than once in the film. Spoilers for Sleepaway Camp, by the way, a film that is over 40 years old. The ending of Sleepaway Camp has sparked loads of discourse where some have tried to claim that it's problematic and painting transgender folks in a negative light, but others have made the argument that if we're really being technical, Angela, the person who is revealed to be the killer, is not a trans character. Angela is a boy who's been forced to live as a girl. The face that Angela is making at the end is so known and recognizable to cinephiles, and in particular fans of the horror genre, that of course all of those people will recognize it as being baked into the DNA of Jane's new film, Camp Miasma. If you don't know about Sleepaway Camp, this is rather significant context that is going to completely fly over your head, and then I have no idea what you are going to experience when watching Jane's new film. Broadly speaking, this relationship between Sleepaway Camp and Camp Miasma is showing the nature of how formative art is to the people that it reaches, especially at a younger age. The specificity of Jane's vision is evident. The story of Camp Miasma is about being able to better connect to one's sexuality after transitioning, but anyone that's fallen deeply in love with the filmmaking medium, with storytelling as an art form, should still be able to see something of themselves in Camp Miasma. You would presumably have your own version of having a work of art that was profound and formative to you, particularly when you were growing up. I also really love that we have a new horror movie that is joyful, by the way. Do you know how tired I am of these new horror movies that believe that all that it takes to fulfill the brief of being something from the horror genre is be as disgusting and mean-spirited as possible? Forget that noise. It's time for Camp Miasma, where you get your rocks off, fall in love with a woman, and enjoy the creative and personal breakthroughs that follow as a result. To the industry at large, keep cutting Jane checks for new movies for them to make. We will be watching.
Oh, what's happening?
So in essence, it's a movie for gays and lesbians alike, and people of the LGBT community, aka fags. Yeah, I said that. Don't have to play it on the game. Pause. Album dropping next week. Pre-order now. Yeah, it's for those LGBT people, especially little people that, I can see this movie as woke for sure. Both movies are woke in a way, but Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma is awoke in a way that it's explicitly meant to be woke, even though it's actually making fun of certain things in cinema. And it's just, I quite frankly don't care if I offend people on YouTube. I offend both the woke and the non-woke sides alike. Therefore, I just don't care, at this point, because that damn Mexican man. I just want to tear his fucking brains out. I really do. Yeah. This has nothing to do with the actual broadcast tonight, but yeah, I think we're gonna keep going. Wow. Which video should we play next? We're just gonna go one line then. I change it up as I do it. Yep. It's all the bullshit I got.
My coach, Amy Bramley, is to this day one of the most supportive people that are in my life. She is the one person who gave me motivation.
It delves into a lot of other ideas regarding, what we around here would call, was it great or were you 8, I think.
So much expectation for this movie, Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. This is Jane Schoenbrun's follow-up to I Saw the TV Glow, which is a movie that if you saw it, it seeped into your pores. As a filmmaker, they've got a way with mood and that's so true here as well. Subscribe and hang out. This is very much an us kind of movie. So if this is your kind of thing as well, come spend some time with us. Alonzo.
I mean, this white person in particular, she's so goddamn hopeful that it's so annoying. I mean, she's that old grandma that annoyingly has to fucking cheer you up and shit. She does it to her grandkids, but fine, that's great. Her son, yes, but I find it annoying.
What happens here?
How did you choose to live at the abandoned sleepaway camp from the first film?
Someone's gotta be here when little Dad comes back.
Yeah, this is very much a piece with their earlier films about how we are shaped by the media we consume, particularly when we're young, and it kind of stays with us forever. Hannah Einbinder plays a filmmaker who has had a hit at Sundance and has now been tasked with reviving the dormant Camp Miasma horror film series. It's Friday the 13th with a dollop of sleepaway camp. And there's the stabby killer in this movie wears a sort of zip up hazmat suit, has a head like an air conditioning vent, and goes by the moniker Little Death. And yes, that is the French term for orgasm, and that comes into play later.
Le Petit Mort.
Exactly. So, Chris, the filmmaker played by Hannah Einbinder, her big idea is, to bring back the original final girl of the Camp Miasma series who dropped out of filmmaking and kind of disappeared in general. Afterwards, Billy Presley, played by Gillian Anderson. And it turns out that, not only has Billy sort of, retired from the screen, but she has secluded herself at the camp where they shot the original Camp Miasma. So reality and filmmaking are very much kind of like, overlapping and butting up against each other in this movie as the two of them grow close, as Chris sort of goes through her own experience with having seen the original Camp Miasma as a kid and how it stayed with her in so many ways. And this is a movie that is about being a spectator, about being an audience member, and about how the movies kind of stay with us. It delves into a lot of other ideas regarding what we around here would call, was it great or were you 8? I think there's a whole running thing about candy that I leave you to decipher for yourself. I think I know what it means, kind of, but I love the fact that this is one of those movies where it's not a puzzle to be solved, but there are a lot of things that are left to you to kind of think about and consider and contemplate. The two lead performances are extraordinary. Hannah Einbinder is playing a character kind of, not too far afield from her character on Hacks in terms of the way she communicates and her relationship with pop culture and junk food, but is also kind of digging into other aspects of this character that are fascinatingly complex. And Gillian Anderson as sort of like a horror movie Norma Desmond, complete with turban at one point, is just like a delight. And so I've seen this movie twice now. I love all the things that it's throwing up there and all the ideas that it leaves for you to decipher and all the ways that reality and movies blur together and what that means and how we all do that to some extent in our own lives and how, there are films that you see that become a part of you or part of your personality or part of your outlook on the world, which is, I think, again, a recurring theme for Schönbrunn. And this just had me entranced all the way to the end. It goes in some wild directions, but I think audiences who are paying attention and actively watching will be able to follow it. And again, it doesn't spell out what it's about necessarily, but it leaves you with a lot to think about and a lot to consider as you decide for yourself what's going on here.
It's so easy to become a podcaster with Riverside. First, go to Riverside and open an account. When you're ready to record, just hit rec to capture high-quality audio and
Yeah, this is a great example of affectionately skewering a genre, but also slowly, steadily becoming an example of that genre.
Yes, for
and
sure.
There's a very meta conversation that the filmmaker has with Billy Presley about, I know that I was chosen for this because I'm a queer filmmaker to take back some of the undesirable elements of this franchise. And so, there's a whole lot of kind of meta quality of that as far as taking a kind of film and recontextualizing it and causing us to think about it and the movie within it differently along the way. So It works on so many different levels in a way that is so intricate and thoughtful and smart and funny and self-aware. And it grabs you from the opening titles. The title sequence is beautiful.
Yeah.
And so detailed. I don't want to give it away because I want you to experience it, but the details in it and the way it's paced and the way it evolves.
Yeah.
So clever and so smart and true, but also kind of heightened in a way that's very, very funny. So I really loved that from the very beginning.
It made me think about, BJ and Harmony Colangelo wrote this book about Sleepaway Camp. And this is a film that was decried by trans activists for a long time. And there's now this generation between this book and in Corpses, Fools and Monsters and elsewhere where trans viewers are kind of reclaiming it for themselves and finding what they want to find in it and interpreting it in a way that is different than what original audiences thought. And so, there is this idea of Camp Miasma having this sort of weird transphobic baggage and the idea of a hip new young queer filmmaker coming in to fix it. And that really plays into, I think, a lot of what we've seen happening with horror in general. It is very often a genre that is kind of considered like, the bad cousin, that says the things that we shouldn't say out loud. And often films that are looked at as, offensive or negative or, phobic in whatever way, eventually another audience kind of comes along and says, well, but, let's unpack and let's figure out how this is maybe addressing issues in a way that other movies just were ignoring entirely. So I know I'm making this movie sound academic. It's a lot of fun. It's very funny. It is, I've heard it described as, a portrait of a lady on fire meets Jason X, which, top that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie has a lot of ideas in its head, but it's also just really entertaining, beautifully acted, and a lot of fun.
Yeah, and tonally, it makes this shift along the way from being very self-aware, very insider industry to becoming something a little more dreamlike and a little more amorphous, which is also, what happens in I Saw the TV Glow. While they're both tied to very specific kinds of pop culture, they also morph in a way that becomes something larger and a little dangerous and thrilling. And so it's such a tough tonal shift that it takes, but it does it so beautifully and is so enthralling the whole way. And a lot of that has to do with the way that relationship between these two main characters evolves, and it takes you to places where you don't know what's even real anymore, and does it even matter? And I love that about it. And there's some beautiful filmmaking here as well, just in terms of the texture and the color and the shifts from between the movie and then the movie within the movie, and how that's differentiated. There's a fantastic long single take with a needle drop that you will not expect, but it also indicates a kind of like a liminal space in terms of when this all happens, where this all happens. And that's sort of intoxicating as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy shorthand to call movies like this Lynchian, but I think there are a lot of David Lynch influences to be found here, and in a good way. Like, I think that Schönbrunn is very much establishing their own voice, but I think you can sort of, because their work is so influenced by other films and other genres, of course, there's going to be hints and elements of other filmmakers in there. I love this movie so much. I will be seeing it again.
Good.
And I just, I really hope that both Einbinder and Anderson are remembered come award season, because they are both kind of doing a tightrope act here that could go wrong very easily, and they see it all the way through.
Yeah, it's intimate and it's delicate, but also got, it's big in a lot of its emotions and ideas. Gillian Anderson, so fabulous here, like a captivating diva, but then there's also like a groundedness, and she's doing this voice that's kind of Dolly Parton, kind of like raspy, husky, like
but
honeyed Southern, and just is an enigma, like a fascinating enigma the whole way through. So yeah, she's really, really great. What is your number then on Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma?
I'm going to say a 9.5. I think this is certainly one of my favorite films of this year. And I think, further evidence that Jane Schönbrunn is one of our most exciting up and coming filmmakers.
Yeah, I will say a 9. It's pretty great. So yeah, the title may be clunky, but it's a really cool movie. So go check it out.
Building something great takes more work than anyone realizes. Writing the code, making the right plan, thinking of all the edge cases,
dinosaurs right. Had that happen once or twice. But hey, we get a Spinosaurus, we get a T-Rex, we get this weird snake-looking thing that was awesome. And what made me kind of shocked at times is the movie's PG-13, but I think it pushes the limit of what PG-13 can be. I was already talking about how the movie has a good sense of fear and dread, where you feel it in the characters, where you can make the argument this is a horror movie, because it treats the situation horrifying and terrifying, which it is, right? You just wake up one day and dinosaurs are down your street. But there are several times throughout the movie where you'll see a dinosaur bite a neighbor, bite a kid, stumble upon several dead bodies where there's actually red blood, none of that dark brown blood that they do for PG-13. And one scene that genuinely had my jaw to the ground. I didn't.
That is almost the exact same quote that somebody else had said, making me think those are not his words. And all these reviewers do this. They bounce off each other or say something that somebody else has said. They use another reviewer's words. Stay original, man. Stay original.
Not expect that from this movie and from a PG-13 dinosaur film that I think I would still say is geared towards families in the same way like a Jurassic Park movie is, right? But there was a scene, and you'll know it when you see it. When it goes down, you're going like, what? That just happened? And I love when a movie can invoke a sense of shock, because really, it didn't feel slightly predictable in the way it was being presented? Like you were just gonna get mindless, random dinosaur violence with a family you kind of like, maybe you don't like all that much, and you're just burning an hour and 30 minutes. That's honestly the most hopeful thing I was feeling with this movie. Completely blew me away. I also love that the movie didn't linger too hard on the sci-fi reason for why all of this is happening. If you're going into this hoping that there's a long, logical explanation for why a whole neighborhood can be transported back in time, okay, you're gonna be disappointed. But I didn't mind it, because I just needed a reason to watch a suburban family fight off dinosaurs. And you know, getting back to what I was saying, I don't want to be too much of like a Jurassic Park hater, because I'm still yearning for those movies to get back to the feeling that, believe it or not, this movie gave me. I've seen a lot of people share this sentiment, and I totally agree, because I was feeling it when watching it. This is honestly one of those perfect representations of a movie that feels like it could have been made in the 80s. You might have heard some movie fans describe this. It felt like an Amblin film, and that's famously Steven Spielberg's label. And a lot of movies that give off that vibe are things like E.T., Back to the Future, Goonies, the first Jurassic Park. There are these adventures where ordinary characters encounter big issues, but it feels adventurous, and it is that big movie feel that you yearn for. I feel like sometimes that's lacking when we go to the theater. I totally got that with End of Oak Street. Again, not saying that's a perfect movie or it's going to be one of the best films of the year, but like in just that type of vibe where it's a blockbuster. It's a popcorn flick where you don't also have to add on, you have to turn your brain off. No, you actually feel some emotions here, and there's real drama that goes on, especially like with Anne Hathaway's character. There's a scene where she looks at something in the basement, and that reaction that she has, it's short, it's a quick moment, but it was a real moment you felt for that character because of everything they were setting up. And so really, I came out so happy and surprised, and honestly excited to watch it again, and hopeful that maybe they can turn this into a franchise, because I would love to see more random neighborhoods in different time periods either get sent back in time to prehistoric times, or heck, have a prehistoric chunk of land come to modern day in like a New York City. This movie gave me what I was hoping Jurassic World Dominion was going to be someday, you know, not this Fast and Furious with dinosaurs. No, it was, hey, what if just you went outside and a T-Rex was there? This movie delivered on that. So honestly, very happy with this. Now, I have to be honest, like I said, on some of the drawbacks, this movie's not perfect at all, and there are going to be some people that walk out going, it was fine, or it was okay. I think the biggest thing that people are going to be stuck on is some of the logic used at the end of this movie. That's where they most play onto the sci-fi elements, and there's decisions made where people are just gonna not let the movie immerse them and go, well, that doesn't make sense, or if you think about it, I don't think that can actually happen. It's like,
Did you know you can hire someone from another country and have them working in days, not months? Most companies have no idea this is even possible. Global hiring is too complex to handle on your own. We had a customer come to us because they wanted to hire from Argentina, and their team said it'd take 6 months. They came to us on a Monday, and that developer was working by Friday. That's why we built Deal. You can hire someone from another country without setting up an entity. It takes minutes, not months. That's the kind of difference Deal makes. If you're serious about scaling globally, visit Deal.com and book a demo today.
We just saw dinosaurs eat up a bunch of neighbors in the 80s, buddy. I don't think we're trying to so hard on the logic. It didn't bother me, but I did walk out talking to some people. They're like, the ending didn't really make that much sense. I do think at times there's some weird effects going on. Like I mentioned, this movie had some like production issues where they had to do reshoots or change things up. Really made it sound like the movie was maybe a mess and they fixed it up as much as they could. But you can tell in the movie some of those scenes that are reshot because Ewan McGregor goes from standing in a physical location to a green screen, and there are some times in effect that could have looked better than it did. That was it for me. I was completely engaged. I love the pacing of the movie and the way it unfolded the story. Some might find the beginning a little like dragging on of like, are you actually going to show us dinosaurs or just keep teasing them? But I think then since the rest of the movie gives you a lot of dinosaur action, I love the way they built up to that, how they took it serious. You could actually feel the fear within characters, family dynamic, and the drama going on between them was good. Genuinely, I thought this was honestly a really great time. So when it comes to the end of Oak Street, I'm gonna give action 3.5 stars. There's a good variety of prehistoric action with a ton of different dinosaurs, and I like how they were able to push the violent elements as far as they could go with a PG-13. Comedy in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. I was so happy the movie took most of it serious. While there's still a couple of jokes and actually some moments of levity, it's only sprinkled throughout the movie. Drama in the film, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. I really did like, again, how seriously they took this family in peril, the fear, the marital issues that the mom and dad face, and especially with Anne Hathaway's character. Like I said, there's a moment with her in the basement that I thought was some just really strong character stuff for the movie. Suspense the movie, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars, and I'm genuinely surprised that's how high my suspense was, because I thought this would be an unfortunately very predictable, paint by the numbers, generic blockbuster, and no, it actually had a good rhythm to it, a good pace, and one giant shocking moment I really wasn't expecting at all. And horror in the film, I'm gonna give 2.5 stars. I think they actually do a good enough job of bringing the fear in these dinosaurs in certain situations, and how much this family gets backed into a corner, you do fear for how badly they'll get hurt. When looking at the 3 C's, I think most will be able to enjoy this, even the harsher critics who are like really upset with the movie for the AI. The movie's entertaining and well done enough that they'll be forgiving to the marketing department making that dumb decision. Casuals will really get into it, but I'm gonna go more cinephile because, again, End of Oak Street was kind of that classic blockbuster. Like, if this movie came out in the 80s, this would be a lot of people's favorite movies. It would probably be a franchise. It would be a huge deal. And I hope that kind of still happens for the movie now, because these are the kind of films I sometimes miss getting. So when it comes to End of Oak Street, while not a perfect movie and it's had its controversies, looking at the final product itself, I think it's not only a movie worth watching in theaters, it's also a movie worth adding to your personal collection.
That's a keeper.
Again, I really enjoyed this. I ended up being kind of surprised by it. I hope you guys give it a chance, especially if you're a dinosaur fan and just kind of wanted a fun family romp, or like me, if you've been dying for a really fun Jurassic Park movie, like this fills that void. Let me know your guys' thoughts, anything and everything. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.
This is Navon Edge, the personal assistant for frequent business travelers. Navon Edge learns what you love down to the smallest details and finds your perfect flight, stay, or meal. How does it work?
What is up, guys? Welcome to my review of The End of Oak Street, basically marking the end of the summer season as far as I'm concerned, the last big budget blockbuster style movie that we're going to get for the summer season of 2026. And this is a movie that's been on my radar quite a bit over the last few months. The trailer has played at most of the movies that I've went to this summer. The premise looked really cool. The trailer was interesting. All the names involved, both in front of and behind the camera, are people I'm big fans of. So I had a lot of hope that this was going to bring a close to the summer season with one hell of a bite. And the basic premise of The End of Oak Street is you have this little suburban community in 1982 that one night is suddenly transported back to the prehistoric era. And so you're following this family that is trying to survive roaming dinosaurs and figure out a way to get home. So did The End of Oak Street close out the summer with a bang, or is this yet another dinosaur film that looks great in the trailer and kind of sucks when you watch it in the theater? And starting off with the positives, I will say, though there are some asterisks, that this is probably the dinosaur movie that I have personally enjoyed the most since the original Jurassic Park. Now, those asterisks being that there are some issues with this film. I am not by any means trying to say that this is anywhere near as great as that original Jurassic Park film, because it's not. And basically all the other Jurassic Park films and other dinosaur films that I'm comparing this to don't exactly give you a super high bar. So keep that in mind when I say that. But as somebody who kind of looks at Jurassic movies or dinosaur movies as well as shark movies as something that Steven Spielberg perfected it and nobody else can do it right after that, this is kind of an exception to that rule, where I actually had a really good time with this one. And what I enjoyed the most about it was the mixing of genres and influences and vibes going on with the film, where it's very much a science fiction movie. It's very much got like this Twilight Zone vibe about it. And yet it also has very obvious Amblin Entertainment, 80s movies influences, just with the pacing of the movie and the sense of humor and the sense of wonder that is going on. Clearly, Spielberg films are a huge inspiration for what David Robert Mitchell is doing with this one, as well as, you know, having J.J. Abrams as a producer. He does not shy at all away from Steven Spielberg being a massive influence on him. But this is also a movie that embraces the horror side of things, which is probably what kind of tipped it over the edge for me of being something that I really enjoyed. Because even going back to, you know, the Jurassic Park franchise, most of those movies tend to shy away from that. They don't tend to really embrace like the horror monster movie that's at the heart of a Jurassic movie or a dinosaur film. And this movie will actually shock you and surprise you with how far it will go into that territory during certain sequences. The dinosaurs are actually scary again. They're actually intimidating. They're actually movie monsters again, not just giant CGI creatures. And so I really enjoyed kind of the nostalgic nature of the movie, where, you know, it starts off and you're very obviously somewhere in the 80s. And even just like the aw shucks nature of some of the characters, especially Ewan McGregor as the father, very much almost felt like you're watching an old school sitcom from that era. Like there's just something very whimsical about the way that people interact that was kind of interesting to me. And then very much you're starting to get this sense of intrigue, this sense of mystery as these lightning storms are happening and these weird prehistoric style plants are starting to pop up around the neighborhood. And then of course, even once you're actually in the prehistoric era, once the plot of the movie really kicks in, it doesn't just hit you in the face with the dinosaur chases. Like they're hidden in the shadows. You see rustling trees. You see like a tail disappear. Like it's using those old school tricks that Steven Spielberg used in the original Jurassic Park to kind of very much wet your beak a little bit with what's going on with the dinosaurs before ultimately paying it off in the second half. And it also leads to the movie to be a really well-paced experience. Like it's only about 98, 99 minutes long, so it's a pretty bite-sized movie. It gets in, it gets out, doesn't overstay its welcome. The first act is very much about slowly building that intrigue and kind of foreshadowing that something weird is about to happen. Then when you're going into the more monster movie side of things, it takes its time before it really starts to sink its teeth in, no pun intended. And there are some spots in this movie where I was genuinely in the middle of the film thinking, I'm liking this, but you know, I think the biggest issue is that it's pretty predictable. That there's a lot of things going on here that just kind of feels like I would have expected this to happen. It doesn't have a whole lot of surprises in store. Holy shit! I wasn't expecting that. They fucking went there. Whoa! I'll shut up. I don't want to overstate things, but there is a sequence in this movie that is genuinely one of the most surprising things that I've seen happen in theater in a very long time, where I audibly kind of gasped when it happened, didn't quite believe what was happening, and then spent the next 5 minutes going, was that like a dream? Like the movies don't tend to go there. That actually happened? Holy shit. Fuck yes. And once you do get into the back half of the film and the dinosaurs are very much kind of the stars of the show and your main source of your horror and your tension, I think they looked really good. Now they're entirely CGI, at least it seems that way. It doesn't seem like they're doing a mix of practical and CGI the way that Spielberg did, but it's convincing CGI. You know, this is comparison to like what Neil Blomkamp did when he had District 9, where it's like clearly there's a lot of CGI going on here, but it looks pretty damn immaculate. So I thought the dinosaurs looked great. I like the way that they're kind of a modernized design where they have a little bit more of a bird-like look, a lot of feathers, where we've kind of learned over time that's most likely what they are actually would look like back in the prehistoric era versus the more lizard-like look that we got with Spielberg films. So that made it stand out quite a bit. And even just some of the effects as they're like tearing through the house or attacking people, you get a little bit of gore here and there. It is a PG-13 film, so it's not going to go super far, but they definitely pushed that rating quite a bit. Like if you told me this was rated R, I probably would have believed you. And at the heart of the film, you have these cast of characters, this family of four that I really liked. I was invested in them. I was very much wanting them to survive. You know, you have two younger kids that you're not as engaged with them, but you do like them. The older sister that is a good older sister for a change. It's not actually leaning into the whole tropes of the older sister always being a bitch to the younger brother being somebody who's a little rough on the edges, but his parents don't quite know the full nature of it. So you're kind of waiting for him to be a little bit of a badass that surprises them. And then of course the parents who are the main stars here. You got Ewan McGregor as somebody who, as I said, has like a bit of a old school sitcom dad vibe about him, which I really enjoyed. Somebody who's a family man who pretty much what you're told about him is he's somebody who's down on his luck, but just trying everything he can to provide for his family, even if it's not appreciated, even if it takes him away from them more than he would want to be. And then Anne Hathaway, who's kind of the drive of the movie, who's having a fantastic year, by the way. Like, I still haven't seen Mother Mary, and we got another movie coming out here in like a month with her, but every performance that I've seen with her so far is like, wow, you're like really trying to prove that you are not somebody to be fucked with in this industry. And this movie's of no exception. She is somebody who has to really take command of the movie. She's a little bit more of the drive character, somebody who's unhappy with her marriage while longing for some resolution there. And then now you have this crazy situation where you're going to take two people who have been distant and force them to be together and see how they're going to survive as a couple and see how she's going to be a mother despite all these crazy, horrific things happening. And so I thought that, you know, the cast here, despite being a small cast, really commanded the film well, and I enjoyed their characters. And while the movie's certainly not full of laughs, there were a couple notable moments where my theater got a really good laugh. One in particular, I took my 9-year-old to go see this, that she was cackling and giggling about for like a straight 10 minutes after the movie, or after that scene, where I actually had to like audibly quiet her down a bit. Like, I know that was funny, but like, let's bring it down, okay? Let's move on and watch the rest of the movie. So it's got a solid sense of humor in it for balancing out some of the really dark and horrific places that it does take you. Moving on to the mixed, and the only thing that I'll say here and why it's in the mix is because I'm honestly not sure, is that it feels like there might have been some stuff cut out of this movie. Like, it feels like this might have gone through a few different stages of test screenings and they eventually whittled it down to a just over 90-minute runtime, which I've already said makes it a nice fast-paced experience, which I do appreciate. But I can't help but feel like story-wise and character-wise, there's something missing here. It's just a little bit of a feeling that I got in the back half where I don't know if it's with the neighbors, like it felt like there might have been a little bit more there with building some relationships with the people that they're now forced to survive with, or maybe even just with the kids at certain points. But there's a section of the movie that all of a sudden felt very quick. And I couldn't help but feel like there was probably 10 or 15 minutes of plot cut out of that, either because it was poorly received in a test screening or because they wanted to get the runtime down to a little bit more of a action adventure pace. But I definitely felt something was missing there plot wise. Moving on to the negatives. I'll get the very easy, minimal nitpick out of the way first. Can we please just put 1982 in like a title card at the beginning of this fucking movie? Like, I don't know if I'm alone in this, but whenever you have a film that is a period piece, whether it be in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, my like pop culture brain instantly starts playing detective, where I'm like looking at some of the movie posters or the music posters or trying to listen to the music that's being played. I'm trying to like figure out exactly what year the movie takes place in. And most times that's mitigated by them saying audibly in the dialogue or having it on a fucking newspaper or a title card what year it is. And this movie does not do that. You don't even actually find out it's 1982 until like the last 5 minutes of the movie. So that just something that was bugged the piss out of me the entire movie. Like, when the fuck does this take place? It's in the 80s, damn it. What year? What year? All joking aside, I wanted to say that because I thought it was funny that bugged me so much. But yeah, just a title card, just a little title card would have mitigated that little bit of annoyance for me. But maybe that's just a me thing. Another minor nitpick. I wish there was at least one sequence here where we got to see dinosaurs fighting each other. It felt a little odd to me that, suddenly you have like this neighborhood that's plopped in the middle of this prehistoric land and all of the dinosaurs just seem to commingle with each other. Like there's spots where you'll see a corpse of a dinosaur that got attacked at some point, but I just can't help but expect, and maybe it was one of those things that was left on the cutting room floor that I felt, that it would have been cool to have a sequence where they're running from a dinosaur and they've got him dead to rights, and then all of a sudden a bigger dinosaur comes in, or, a T-Rex or something like that. It just felt like I was waiting for that type of scene and it never came, so I'm not going to hold the movie accountable for what it wasn't trying to do. I just wish it was there. I'll also say that this is a movie that definitely leans on silliness, both with some of the tone and the situations as well as the character decisions. Now, I think that sometimes that's fun to have in a movie. Sometimes that goes for a little bit more the lighthearted vibe that we're going for. Sometimes you need it for the plot to go forward. And as long as it's not too ridiculous, I'm pretty forgiving on that. But I can imagine some other people really going hard on this movie for saying how silly it is despite how dark it gets. But for me, the biggest issue in the movie was that I was a little unsatisfied with the way that it wrapped up. I think it's a solid ending, but to me, there are some elements in play during that ending that the movie very strangely just completely ignored. I'm not going to get into any specificity here. This is not going to be a spoiler segment or anything, but all that I'll say is that for a movie that is balancing a lot of different tones,
before Merit America, Amy was struggling financially as a single parent. She worked as a truck operator, and like 53 million other Americans, felt stuck in low-wage work with no way to move up. Merit America, a national nonprofit, helped her build new professional skills and technical expertise, all from home without sacrificing time with her daughter. 5 years later, Amy's tripled her salary, and she's got a career journey she's proud of. Change your story with Merit America.
it felt like the movie's ending was very much trying to push towards one certain tone and try to get the audience to have one specific style of emotion, when the nature of the movie's conclusion is actually a lot more complicated than that. It's a lot more ambiguous. It's a lot more like morally complicated than just a singular toned emotion style ending, a clean little wrap it up with a bow style ending. And so when the movie ended, I was actually surprised and confused that they didn't address that in any way. And I understand it's hard to understand what I'm talking about without me getting specific, but what happens is happy for some and kind of fucked up in a certain way as well. And for a movie that was not afraid to go dark at times, I was surprised that it did not acknowledge the potentially fucked up side of the ending and kind of leave you walking out with a little bit more of a question mark, saying, I don't know. Are you happy about the way that that ended? Do you think that's a good ending? Do you think that's kind of a dark ending? Like, it could have been an interesting conversation piece. It could have been an interesting thing to kind of see what emotion people really latched into with that ending. And instead, they very much were like, this is supposed to be this tone. You're supposed to feel this way. And it just didn't quite work for me. So it's an ending that I think overall on paper is satisfying enough, where I wasn't mad, I wasn't upset, but I would have done things a little bit differently, and it feels like the movie was setting up with its different tones a very obvious way to do it a very different, more satisfying way. Also in that, as I've already kind of alluded to a couple times, with feeling like there was some stuff left on the cutting room floor, it did feel like the movie approached its conclusion very quickly. Like, you have something that happens that is very much like the kickoff to the third act, and then it felt like 10 minutes later we're in the climax of the film. So for a variety of different reasons, different feelings that I had, the conclusion of the movie didn't completely stick the landing. If we had just tweaked a couple of things, went in a couple different directions, or at least just executed the directions they wanted to go in a slightly different tone, I actually think I would have walked out liking this movie even more. But as is, I walked out really liking it and going, that ending was fine. So overall, guys, I thought this was a pretty enjoyable way to close out the summer season of 2026. If you like old school 80s Amblin entertainment style movies, you like some sci-fi, you like a little horror, this is a movie that really balances all those different styles and influences really well. And if you're also like me and haven't really been that enamored with any dinosaur movies since 1994, this one's actually some pretty good medicine. So go check it out with your family, have one last little summer experience before we start getting ready for spooky season. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, click over here for all of my 2026 new release reviews. If you're a fan of Steven Spielberg, I just recently did a whole ranking of every movie that he's done. Massive video. I'm very proud of that one. Check that one out. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.
This program has been designed to